Hi everyone, we are starting.
Hello and welcome to DevFest 2020. I'm Jason Titus, VP of Engineering at Google, joining you from my home in California. Each year, we at Google truly feel the anticipation for DevFest. It's a one-of-a-kind series of developer conferences, and we're glad you can join us and the local developers within your community. Your local DevFest event this weekend is one of hundreds taking place all around the world right at this moment. And what makes DevFest truly unique is that it's run by volunteer community organizers on a mission to help other local developers grow and share a passion for Google technologies. Now, 2020 has been a year of radical change for people across the globe. But when difficult times came about, developers within this community came together online to plan a virtual DevFest where each local chapter could participate, helping each other teach and learn when we need to connect the most. And these connections can be so important. I can remember the first developer conferences I went to, where I met people who were already doing the kinds of things I dreamed of doing. They had started companies, built products, and I got to hear the stories of what had worked and what had gone wrong. And we hope that all of you will get to have similar experiences at DevFest this year. At Google, we've always believed that we are only successful when all of our users are successful. While Google and its products may plant a seed, it's developers like yourself who make the seeds grow and thrive. This community of developers has shown us firsthand how you're using technology to help each other during times of need. Let me introduce you to my teammate David to share with you some great examples. Welcome, David.
Hi, Jason. Thank you. And welcome everybody to this year's DevFest season. I'm David McLaughlin, Director of Developer Ecosystems at Google. So I've been with DevFest since the very first year in 2010, when I was able to join a large percentage of them. Back then, they were a series of targeted events in just a handful of countries. In the years since then, we've had massive growth to countries all over the world. While I really do miss being able to join many of you in person this year, I'm happy to be able to continue the celebration of developers and tech in a new virtual format and bring people together to learn and to share what we're all building. Over the years, it's been great to see the apps and the solutions the broader community has built with the support of their local GDG chapters. We now have thousands and thousands of developers who are working to address real-world problems in their local communities. Particularly during the challenging times of COVID, I'm impressed by how much your work has made people's lives better. There's a few recent examples that truly stand out to me. Community developers from GDG West Sweden recently worked with the Swedish government to create Hack the Crisis, an event focused on designing, testing, and executing ideas in response to recent challenges. One of the finalists, named Remote Gigs, helped modernize the Swedish government's employment website to match job seekers with remote work. Nearby in Romania, GDG groups organized a hackathon, gathering 270 different mentors and students from across 8 different countries. The hackathon brought together developers to save lives, to save communities, and to save businesses. Some of the winners included an online platform that connected volunteers with nonprofits across the region, a system to help doctors work with each other and to ease online consultations, and a personal assistant for health and nutrition tracking. Another cool app that they developed was Risk Alert, an app that alerts emergency rooms that a patient with a very rare disease is about to arrive, so that the hospital can prepare for any special needs. In Asia, GDG Tainan initiated the Mask Inventory app at the start of COVID-19, which crowdsources mask inventory from local store data, combining it with the Google Maps API. The project was so popular that it caught the attention of Taiwan's government, inspiring them to publish public data APIs on masked inventory managed by the government. Taiwan's digital minister has since encouraged the GDG Tainan chapter to create more than 100 different apps to help the local community. In India, GDG Cloud Pune used machine learning with TensorFlow and GCP to help their community with an app that remotely analyzes dental health and helps patients book at-home dental services. They've had over 300 trained images so far, and the developer community is working with local universities to gather more than 50,000 dental images to improve the application. In the Middle East, the region's largest International Women's Day event was held in April in Turkey by multiple GDG groups working together. They had over 2,500 attendees to the event, which included a raffle for online courses and talks in artificial intelligence and data. The event helped women across the community and across the region learn and apply their skills. And of course, here in the United States, the GDG Memphis chapter has joined GiveCamp, where software developers in the area donate their skills for nonprofits, as well as helping kids learn to code on the weekends. These are just a small sample of the ways that Google Developer Group chapters and communities like yours all over the world are learning together and giving back what they've learned to really help people's lives everywhere be better. I encourage all of you to continue, be in community with your fellow developers. Think about how can you use the skills and the tech that you're learning this weekend at DevFests, as well as the networks and the communities that you form, the new friends that you make. How do you combine all of these to make a difference in your own area? Now let's take a look at a really inspiring story from Uganda. It shows how a community member started learning about machine learning and ended up building a really nifty app using TensorFlow that detects diseases in plants and helps farmers reduce crop devastation. Take a look.
Growing up in the city, I never expected to work in agriculture. But when fall armyworm attacked, it affected us all. Since its arrival in 2016, this crop pest has caused massive devastation. I've met farmers who have lost everything.
Tubadde tukozzaako ddagala olaba nti akako okulya ki kasooli naye akantu ako tekayinza kumalawo obulwadde obussebo.
So I wanted to use my skills as a software developer to help. At a Google Study Jam, we taught ourselves TensorFlow. We started by building an Android app on top of an open source API. The app allows farmers to spot infestations early, far beyond the capability of human eyes, and suggest an effective treatment. When I was younger, I didn't know what I wanted to do, but then I discovered app development, and I was excited to show people something they never thought possible. Machine learning gives us the advantage against fall armyworm, ultimately saving harvests and reducing pesticides.
Tuntuusiza kubanga taata oba jjajja teyalina ennyumba y'ebbaati. N'ebbaati nazimba ennyumba yange nga tetonya. Tulina essuubi ne tufuna embeera ennungi okulima.
We are just getting started, and there are so many other sectors like health and education that machine learning could really improve. Farming is a crucial aspect of life in Uganda, and I feel proud I'm part of a team driving to ensure our culture can continue.
Earlier, you saw a beautiful inspirational video about how machine learning and Android were used to create an app to detect crop diseases. So for DevFest, I wanted to get together a few of my friends from Google and beyond to show you how you could get started in building something just like that from scratch in a few minutes. We'll build an Android app and a web app. So to get started with Android, let's see what Chet can teach us.
I want to create an app that's able to recognize information about plants. It's going to need camera functionality as well as machine learning inputs. Let's see what that looks like in code.
The app is written in Kotlin and uses Camera X to take the pictures and ML Kit for on-device machine learning analysis. The core functionality is in Take Photo, where we take a picture, analyze it, and display the results. First, we call Take Picture on a Camera X image capture object that was created earlier. One of the parameters is a callback object, which has this onCapture success function. We get the received image into the format we need for MLKit, then we create an image labeler object and process the image. When this succeeds, we receive a collection of image labels, which we turn into text strings and display a toast with the results. Let's see what the demo looks like. So we'll take a picture, and it says, I see an insect and a plant.
So that was pretty easy, rigging up Camera X and MLKit to detect arbitrary objects in the camera view. But the results were pretty generic because the data set didn't have enough information about our domain. So let's dig a little deeper.
Okay, let's go deeper. Now we need a model for something very specific, detecting diseases in bean plants instead of cassava. Let's explore how to build it. On this guide, we'll use some of the great TensorFlow tooling available. Let's start with Colab. You can understand Colab as a cloud-hosted development tool. We will do all our coding on it, and we will not need to install anything on your machine. Let's start with a new notebook. Let's just turn the title to beans. We will need to install some packages that we are going to use later. These packages are not installed on your machine. They are on a cloud machine that was created for your Colab. Nice, it finished installing the packages. Let's download the data and do some visualization to understand how our data is separated. Perfect. We download the data. Let's take a look on some of the images so we can have a better understanding of what we are doing here. Here they are. These are some of the images that will be used for training our model later. Now we have the data. We need to create a model. We are not going to create one from scratch. We are going to use a technique called transfer learning. TensorFlow Hub is a repository for TensorFlow models. You can find all kinds of models here. Let's start with this one. Let's go back to our Colab. Let's define a model handle. Nice. Now we have the data and the base model. How can we do transfer learning? To do that, we are going to use one of the tooling that I mentioned before called Model Maker. Model Maker makes your life way easier when you need to do transfer learning. Let's create the spec for our base model. Let's create our training variables here using the dataset beans that we've just seen. And now we're going to put everything together with Model Maker by defining a model with the training data and the spec that we got from TensorFlow. This will take a couple of minutes. It finished training, and as you can see here, our accuracy is at 87%. Of course, let's evaluate the model with some data we didn't see yet and see how good it is. Nice, 95%.
The TensorFlow Lite model Gus just created contains all of the metadata Android Studio needs to recognize it and automatically build classes for it. To get started, you can update your build.gradle file to include the following TensorFlow Lite dependencies. Then, you'll want to import your generated TF-Lite file into the ML folder of your project. Let's check out the details of our imported model. From here, we can see an example of how to use the model in our app. Let's move over to the main activity class to take advantage of it. Inside of our image capture callback, here on line number 78, we create an instance of our model. Next, we use it to process the captured image here on line number 84. And finally, here on lines 92 through 98, we display the results of consuming the output inside of a toast message. Let's run our app. Now, instead of telling us it's looking at a leaf or a plant, it can actually tell us if it's looking at a bean leaf and give a diagnosis. Sweet.
So this concept works, but it's very much a raw demo. What if we want to make this a more successful app? Well, we probably need to add services like authentication so our users can sign in, analytics and A/B testing so we can find out how our users are really interacting with our app, some crash reporting or performance monitoring, and an easy way to save our users' data to the cloud. Luckily, that's where Firebase comes in. Now, the new and improved Firebase plugin in Android Studio makes this simple. I'll start by adding some analytics so I can find out exactly how our users are interacting with our app. And the plugin does most of the work to get the library integrated into my project. Now that I've done that, well, we can get an instance of the library up here, and then we can log what kind of results we're getting from MLKit. And then once we've done that, there's a lot of ways to get at this data. It'll start showing up here in the Firebase dashboard, but I find one really fun way of viewing this data is to use Stream View, which kind of gives you a real tiny sample of what kinds of analytics results we're seeing. Looks like I've already recorded several of these select content events, and I can dig into these event properties and see what kinds of results our users are getting, and I could start using that information to maybe refine my MLKit model or A/B test different alternatives. Firebase helps you build better apps, and analytics is just the tip of the proverbial iceberg. Maybe we could let our users upload their own pictures and store them in the cloud using cloud storage for Firebase. There's so many possibilities.
This is a sample app, but if we were to productize this, it's important to keep in mind how our AI design decisions impact our users. For instance, we need to consider if and/or how it makes sense to display confidence intervals to help your users interpret the ML model output. Or say how you design the onboarding experience sets user expectations for the capabilities and limitations of your ML-based app, which is vital to app adoption and engagement. For more guidance on AI design decisions, check out the People Plus AI Guidebook at pair.withgoogle.com/guidebook. This use case focuses on plant diseases, but for other use cases where our ML-based predictions intersect with people or communities, we absolutely need to think about responsible AI themes like privacy and fairness, which you can learn more about at tensorflow.org/resources/responsible-AI.
And don't forget about the web. I built a PWA that can be installed across all your users' platforms. It combines the web camera with TensorFlow.js, and by integrating machine learning, we can make an amazing experience that runs across all browsers. Now let's take a look. We have our standard project layout with a HTML file, a manifest, and a service worker to make it a PWA. We have some styles to make it look good, and our data folder that contains our TensorFlow configuration and trained model that we're going to use in the app. Now to the heart of the project. Let's go back to the HTML file and see what's happening. We're also loading the webcam object. This is just a class that wraps some boilerplate logic to make it easier to pass camera data from getUserMedia to TensorFlow. And now let's dive into our app logic in index.js. So I'm just going to use Chrome and the debugger here. And this is only so you can kind of see how easy it is to integrate machine learning into your application. So let's get started by clicking the classify button, get the machine learning gears into action, and immediately we break into the TensorFlow tag function. This is just there to help you kind of clean up any of the memory that TensorFlow uses whilst it makes a prediction. We get our image from the web camera, and then we pass our image back into the machine learning algorithm to make the prediction. And once we've got a prediction, we access the data, and then we can use that data to update the user interface kind of based on any application logic that we want. And that's pretty much it.
Great. So now you have the platform for building a real app. With the tooling from Android Studio, the APIs from CameraX, Jetpack, MLKit, Colab, TensorFlow, Firebase, Chrome, and Google Cloud, you have a lot of things that just work better together. This isn't a finished project by any means, just a proof of concept for how a minimum viable product with a roadmap to completion can be put together using Google's developer tools and APIs.
You might also want to open source this project too, so developers can suggest improvements, optimizations, and even additional features by filing an issue or sending a pull request. It's a great way to get your hard work in front of even more people. We'd love to help you with this, and you can learn more about the process at opensource.guide/starting-a-project. Indeed, we've already open sourced the bean disease sample we discussed in this video, so you can have a great place to start.
Thanks, Pooja. And as you mentioned, open sourcing a project is a great way to make it grow and inspire people to adopt and extend it. If you want to learn more about what you've seen in this video, please visit us at developers.google.com.
Hi, developers. My name is Annie Jean-Baptiste, and I'm the head of product inclusion at Google. The demo you just saw shows how Google's products can come together to create an amazing app. But what about product inclusion? You may be wondering, well, what is product inclusion and why is it important? At Google, we believe that giving power to new voices is the core of innovation. When we bring an inclusive lens to the product design process, we amplify underrepresented voices and allow all users to feel seen and validated in the moments that matter for them. We look beyond ourselves and seek out diverse voices to shape the products that we build. We also believe that we have a responsibility not to disappoint our users, no matter who they are, what they look like, how much money they make, who they love, how old they are, or anything that makes them them. And when we make difference the new normal, we will usher in new opportunities to grow our business by earning the love of all of our users. So whether you're 1 or 105 years old, live in a city or a remote village, on Wi-Fi or cellular service, Google is there for you to make sure you have the answers you need when you need them. Product inclusion is exactly what it sounds like, bringing an inclusive lens throughout the entire product design process to create more inclusive products for our users. And so when you're developing your own apps, I challenge you to incorporate the principles of product inclusion into the design process, because we believe that you can do well and do good by being intentional about including underrepresented voices at key points in the product design process. Remember, those closest to the problem are also closest to the solution. You can learn more about product inclusion at Google by visiting accelerate.withgoogle.com. Thanks. Hi, everyone. My name is Jen Cole, and I'm the Global Developer Communities Program Manager at Google. Now it's time to meet and hear from your local developers. So, what can you expect next from your local DevFest? We'll have technical talks, breakout sessions, networking opportunities, and more. These sessions will cover a variety of technologies, such as Android, Google Cloud Platform, machine learning with TensorFlow, web, Firebase, Google Assistant, and Flutter, with speakers from Google, women tech makers, Google developer experts, and your local community. Be sure to claim your badge for participating in DevFest 2020 by going to google.dev/DevFest2020. You can earn even more badges by mastering different Google technologies available on developers.google.com/learn. As a reminder, one of the most important parts of DevFest is providing an inclusive and harassment-free experience for everyone. As an active participant of DevFest, today, we can all agree to treat everyone with respect and to speak up if we see or experience harassment of any kind. Together, we can create an environment that is welcoming and inclusive to everyone with us here today. Follow @GDG on Twitter for highlights from DevFest around the world, and try out the DevFest AR filter and avatar. Share what you're learning or your favorite part about the event on social media with #DevFest. And lastly, don't forget community is all about getting to know one another. Use the virtual breakout rooms and chat feature to connect with other developers near you with shared interests. We hope you enjoyed DevFest 2020.
That was amazing. Hello.
Hi.
Welcome to DevFest Central Asia.
Hi, everyone. Welcome.
I hope you are well.
Well,
it's a big day for us. We've been preparing for this for the past couple of months almost. And we are glad that we are starting the weekend. So, Kalicha, do you folks want to say something, or do you want me to chime in and present?
only hi, we are from GDG Bishkek. I'm Meerin, and this is Kalicha.
Yes, hi everyone. I'm from VTM Bishkek, and the Meerin is GDG Bishkek lead. So
we are very glad to organize the fest with other leads of GDG regions, GDG chapters. Like, it was really good experience. So, Baris?
Yeah, thank you. And thanks for kickstarting the event. I hope you like the DevFest Hero video. With this opportunity, I'd also like to introduce myself and show you some updates regarding the what's been going on with GDGs and DevFest, and also about today's agenda. So I'll share my screen. Hopefully that works. Let me actually put that in full screen mode. All right, cool. So again, welcome to DevFest Central Asia. So this is our hashtag DevFestEA. So please do share that throughout different social media channels throughout the weekend. With that, I'm going to introduce myself again. This is me, Baris Yesugey. I work at Google, developer relations team. And what we do is actually we endorse Google's technologies, developer technologies, to developers all around the globe. So if you are building with those technologies or anything that is on developers.google.com, as developer relations team, our job is to make sure that you are up to date with those technologies. And if you have any questions, to help you and reach out to you via communities and Google events to teach you and learn from you about the best of Google tech and products. And we do that from our Istanbul and Dubai offices in Turkey, Caucasus, and Central Asia region as well. So we are all over the globe. The team is more than 100 people actually. But the region we call Turkey, Caucasus, and Central Asia includes 10 countries. So all the countries in that map and listed are actually managed by myself and my team. And we work very closely with communities in the region to make sure that the technologies you have seen, the products you have seen in the previous slide is endorsed and also mentioned and being taught to developers such as yourself. So DevFest is the biggest event that Google developer groups organize throughout the year. And with that, I'd like to talk about the 2019 actually, and how we did, how was the event series. Of course, in 2019, the world was a bit different. There was no COVID-19, so we were able to do physical events. And we did 8 DevFests in 7 different countries, including Caucasus, countries such as Armenia and Azerbaijan. And with those 8 DevFests, we physically reached out to over 2.5K attendees. And the good thing is diversity and inclusion is the most important metric we have. 35% of our attendants were non-male, women attendants. And within those 8 DevFests, there were 140 speakers and tech sessions delivered to the developers living in the Central Asia and Caucasus region. And almost quarter of our speakers were also non-male. So that was an amazing year. But this year, we are changing things. Before going into that, I'd like to give you some highlights from what happened last year with the DevFest events. So this is the screenshot of the video of the DevFest Tashkent event, where they had over 1,000 people attending. They had 5 parallel tracks and 30 speakers. That was one of the top and one of the most crowded DevFest events globally last year. The next one is DevFest Afghanistan. The event was so amazing. Both BBC and Voice of America actually featured the event on their websites. This is a picture from the Almaty, Kazakhstan DevFest, where over 200 developers listened to the best speakers in the city, and that was their actually 4th DevFest. In the region, we are doing DevFests since 2014. And this is also the year I started at Google. I've been with Google for over 6 years now. And when I started, there was only 1 actually GDG in the whole region, but now it's over 10. So we are proud with that. These are photos from GDG Nur Sultan, Kazakhstan, and GDG Baku, Azerbaijan. And the attendees of those events were more than 40% women, which is amazing. This is another screenshot from Kabul event in Afghanistan and the Ulaanbaatar event in Mongolia, where in total they featured over 40 tech talks. And overall, on average, in all those events, this is a picture from the Kazakhstan event. 35% of the developers attended all the events were non-male, and also the 23% were non-male speakers. So that was amazing. But what's going to happen this year? So this year with COVID-19, we decided to turn things into virtual, of course, and we had an amazing agenda for you. So what's been happening this year is 4 different countries, GDGs from 4 different countries, 5 GDGs are actually coming together to organize this amazing weekend of DevFest. We are starting today, Friday, and we will be ending this on Sunday evening. And until then, we have an amazing agenda for you. So this is the agenda of today. After me, Robert will be taking over, and then we will continue with Roman Julius. And then tomorrow, on Saturday, we have 2 different tracks. So we are starting 11 a.m. on GMT 5 time zone, and we will have 2 tracks. So if you go to the YouTube channel and look at the playlist, you will see that 2 different live streams are happening. There are 2 different tracks, so you will be able to pick one or switch between to watch different sessions from different speakers. And last day, on Sunday, again, we will be starting in the time zone of GMT +5 at 11, and we will be ending the event around 3 p.m. Again, we have Google developer experts and Google speakers, Google employees that will be taking you through different technologies, such as Flutter and web components. But we can say that Sunday is mostly Flutter. So I'm gonna thank you. I'm gonna keep this short because we have an amazing and packed agenda. So enjoy the weekend, enjoy the program, and let me put today's program on the screen for one last time. Now Robert will be taking over, and we will be starting with his deck on presentation on expecting professionalism.
Thank you, Baris.
Sure.
Hi, Bob.
Hello.
Hello. I presume you can hear me.
Yes, we do.
Very good. Okay, let me see. I want to share my screen, don't I? Let's see. Click on this little button, and I think I want to share that one. And the talk that I'm doing is expecting professionalism. So are you all ready? This is going to be a half an hour talk, everybody. So welcome.
Yes.
Okay. So I want to talk to you about a fundamental problem that we have in the software industry, and that is the problem of professionalism. And that will be the whole topic that I'm going to be talking about over the next 30 minutes. This is not a technical talk. This is a talk about our industry in general and what we're going to have to do to face the challenges going forward. And to begin with, I want you to imagine that I am your new CTO. Now, this is not something you actually want. You don't want me to be an administrator because I'm actually a programmer and I'm not a very good administrator. But if I were your new CTO, I would have certain expectations of you. And you're going to hear these expectations. And if you've been a programmer for any number of years, you will hear these expectations in 2 different ways. One of your ears will be the ear of the programmer, and that ear is going to hear something unusual and strange and possibly even impossible. But the other ear will be the ear of the customer and the manager and the user, and that ear will hear something obvious and natural and perfectly expected. And it will be our function over the next few minutes to try and balance those 2 ears, to try and understand why what users expect is what we should deliver. This, of course, is what professionalism is. Professionalism is something we profess. And what is it that we programmers profess? Do we have a set of ethics? Have we written down some standards or some disciplines? Or do we simply say that we write a lot of code and we don't know what else we do? And more, it's the latter than the former. In order to be a professional, there must be something you profess, some set of standards and ethics and disciplines. And I'm going to be talking about those standards, ethics, and disciplines as expectations of the users. Why is this important? It's important because our civilization has found itself depending on software for its continued existence. That may sound like a statement that's somewhat exaggerated, but it's not exaggerated at all. There is virtually nothing you can do in the modern world without interacting with a software system. Everything around us is full of software. Our microwave ovens, our refrigerators, our telephones, our televisions, our automobiles, our airplanes, the computers around us. We get our news nowadays on computers. We do our reading nowadays on computers. We drive to the store with computers surrounding us. You cannot buy anything without interacting with a software system. You cannot sell anything without interacting with the software system. You can't call someone on the phone. You can't watch TV. You can't cook your dinner. You can't do anything in modern society without a software system being right in the middle of it all. And because of that, our society now depends upon software. And that, of course, means that our society, our civilization, depends upon us, programmers. You and I are the ones that our society depends upon. And we do not have a profession. We do not profess the kind of standards and ethics and disciplines that our civilization might expect from us. So let me begin to tell you what I expect. Number one, I expect that we will not ship bad code. I've got a word on the screen. Maybe you don't like that word, but it's an appropriate word. We will not ship bad code. We will not ship bad systems. We will not ship things that are unworthy of shipping. When we ship code, when we deliver code, it is going to be the best code that we can come up with. And I know there are schedules and I know there are demands, and still we are going to ship the very best code that we can, with the best design and the best architecture that we can come up with, because our users expect no less of us, because our civilization expects no less of us. We must be diligent to make sure that we do the best job we can. There's a little secret that very few programmers know, which is that the only way to go fast is to go well. The only way to really meet your deadlines is to do the best job you can. Very often, programmers think that in order to meet a deadline, they have to cut corners. They have to be sloppy. They have to make a mess. But no, that's incorrect. Because every time you cut corners, every time you are sloppy, every time you make a mess, you slow yourself down and you slow everyone else on the team down. The mess slows everyone down. And you know this, and everyone knows this, because you, if you're a programmer for any length of time, have been slowed down by the bad code sitting on your screen. And it hasn't slowed you down a little bit. It's slowed you down a lot. So we want to produce the very best code we can, the very best design, the very best architecture, so that we can go fast. I expect that we will always be ready. Ready to what? Ready to deploy. I don't want to have developers tell me that it's going to be 3 months before we can deploy. I want developers to be ready to deploy every week. I presume that most of you out there are doing some kind of agile process. Maybe it's Scrum, maybe it's something else, but you are doing some kind of agile. Well, if you are doing agile, then you are following some kind of rhythm. And that rhythm is usually once a week, or maybe twice a week, or maybe once every 2 weeks, something like that. So you have a sprint or an iteration that you complete every week or every 2 weeks. I expect that the software you produce at the end of each one of those sprints will be ready to deploy. Now, that doesn't mean the business will want to deploy it. It may not have enough features for the business to deploy it. You may have finished the log out feature, but you may not have finished the log in feature, and the business might decide that they cannot deploy a system without a log in feature. But from a technical point of view, I expect that you will be ready to deploy. If the business says, we've got enough features to deploy, I expect that we will be ready to deploy. I don't want anybody waiting and saying, well, we should wait, 3 or 4 weeks. We should put it over here and burn it in for a while. We should put it on a special little test server over there and just run it and see if it fails. I don't want people doing that. I want you to be ready at the end of every sprint, at the end of every iteration. I want you ready to deploy if the business says deploy. I expect stable productivity. And by that I mean this. I don't expect you to slow down with time. People who are programmers who are on a greenfield project, who have just begun and there's no code, they can go very fast. But as the amount of code builds and gets larger and larger, those folks slow down. They get slower and slower because the code becomes more and more of a mess, and it takes them longer and longer to do anything. I don't expect that. I expect that you will go as fast today as you went a year ago when you had a greenfield project. I do not expect productivity to go down with time. I do not expect that you will create massive messes in the code that will slow everybody down for years and years to come. I expect your productivity to remain stable. I also expect inexpensive adaptability. Users are going to want to change the software. They're going to want to add features. They're going to want to change features. And they should be able to do this because you see, the word software is a compound word. It's made up of 2 words. The first word is soft. The second word is ware. The word ware means product. The word soft means flexible. Software means flexible product. The reason we invented software is so that we could easily change it. Had we not wanted to easily change our machines, we would not have invented software. So if you create a system that is hard to change, you have thwarted the reason that software exists. Software exists to be easy to change and inexpensive to change. One of the things that makes me very upset is when a software developer will come to me and say, these new features completely ruin our architecture. Well, if the new features ruin your architecture, it means that your architecture was pretty bad to begin with, because the purpose of an architecture is to allow change, to make change easy, to make it inexpensive. I expect that you can adapt to the user's changes inexpensively. Inexpensive adaptability, I expect. I expect continuous improvement. It seems to me that the software should get better with time, not worse, better. Many of us have experienced that software over time rots. It gets worse. It gets harder to deal with because it gets more and more tangled. The dependencies cross through it like a whole bunch of lines and nets. I don't expect this. I expect what anyone would expect, that the software will get better with time, that the code will get cleaner with time, that the design and the architecture will get better with time, that it will become easier and easier to add new features, not harder and harder. I expect ongoing, continuous improvement of everything. That's what human beings do. Human beings make things better with time. I do not expect our software to rot with time. I expect fearless competence. Fearless competence. Let me explain what I mean by that. Perhaps one day you were looking at your screen, and on the screen you saw some bad code. And you thought to yourself, oh, that's bad code. That's ugly. I should clean it. And your very next thought was, no, I'm not touching it. Because you know, if you touch it, you will break it. And if you break it, it becomes yours forever. And you don't want it to be yours forever. So you walk away. You don't clean it. You let it stay bad. This was a reaction of fear. You were afraid of the code. I want you to consider how wildly unprofessional that attitude is, how incredibly irresponsible that attitude is. You are so afraid of the existing code that you will not do the one thing that might improve it. You will not clean it. You will not make it better because you're afraid of it. Something has to be done about that fear, because if that fear persists, all systems must rot. All code must get worse. All designs must degrade, because no one will face their fear and clean the code. What can we do about that? How can we eliminate the fear? I want you to imagine that you have a magical button, and you can push that magical button anytime you want. And when you push that button, some lights blink and the computer makes some interesting noises for a minute, and then a little green light lights up. And if that green light lights up, it means that all the code works. The system works. If you had that button, you would not be afraid to change the code. When bad code appeared on your screen, you would say to yourself, oh my, I should clean that code. And your very next thought would be, I think I'll change the name of that variable. And you would push the button. Oh, green light. I didn't break anything. Good. That function there is a little large. I think I'll make it a bit smaller. I'll split it in half. Push the button. Oh, the light is green. I haven't broken anything. Good. That function I just split up, I think this half of it could move over into that class over there. Push the button. Ooh, it turned red. No, put it back. Push the button. Ah, green. Green, good. Oh, I see what I did wrong. I should have put it in this class over here. Push the button. Green. If you had that button, you would not be afraid to change the code. You would not be afraid to clean the code. You would clean the code, because cleaning the code would become trivial. Something that you could do anytime you wanted if you had that button. So you must get that button. You must make that button. And that button, when you push it, must run a suite of tests. And that suite of tests must run quickly. The button must turn on the light within a minute or so. And when that light lights up, you trust that the system works. You need a suite of tests that will tell you that the system works. A suite of tests that runs fast and is easy for you to run. And it tells you that the system works. And if you have that suite of tests, you can be fearlessly competent. The fear will be gone and you will display competence because you will be able to keep the code constantly improving, always clean. There is a discipline that I want you to learn. This discipline is called test-driven development. I'm not going to describe it here. You can look it up. You can study it. That discipline will help you to create the suite of tests that you trust with your life so that you can be fearlessly competent. And that means that you will be able to do something else. I call this something else the Boy Scout principle. Because you see, the Boy Scouts once had a rule. And that rule was that you always left the campground cleaner than you found it. Now, I like to change that rule and say, we programmers always leave the code cleaner than we found it. We always check it in cleaner than we found it. We never check it in dirtier. We always check it in cleaner than we found it. When we check it out, we must do some change. Maybe we fix a bug, maybe we add a feature, and then we do some random act of kindness to make it a little cleaner. And then we check it back in. And if everybody did that, the code would get better and better and better with time. And that means that I expect extreme quality in the structure of the code, extreme quality in the structure of the design, extreme quality in the behavior of the system, in the way that the features run. I expect everyone who uses the system to nod their head and go, my goodness, this is a good system. I don't expect the users to sort of wrinkle up their noses and go, oh my God, this system is terrible. Oh, gee, look at the way they misspelled words. You've got to click around 80 times to do anything you want. It crashes all the time. I don't expect that. I expect the users will look at your system and they will all go with wide eyes. My goodness, what a good system. I expect that we will not dump our bugs on QA. It is not QA's job to find our bugs. It is our job to find our bugs. QA should find nothing. When you submit your code to quality assurance, the QA people should find nothing. The QA people should wonder why they have a job, because they never find anything. In fact, I have a different role for QA. I want QA to be put at the beginning of the project. I want QA to be specifying how the system should work, specifying the tests that will prove that the system works. I do not want QA running the tests. And I especially do not want QA to be doing manual tests. I want all testing of the system to be automated. I want every test that is run to be an automated test. And I want it to run fast, and I want it to run surely. And if you think, well, that's not possible, I submit it to you as a design challenge. You are software designers. You can design a suite of tests that runs fast and covers everything. What you are looking at on this screen is a picture of a QA manager. See those hands there? Those are the hands of the QA manager. And he's holding out a document, and that document is the table of contents for his manual test plan. There are no tests in that document. Only the names of tests are in that document. It is only the table of contents. He has 80,000 manual tests that he must run once every 6 months. And the cost of running those manual tests is $1 million every 6 months. He's holding this document out to me because he's just gotten back from his boss's office. The year is 2008. The financial crisis has begun. His boss just told him that his budget is being cut by 50%. He's holding this out to me, asking me which half of these tests he should not run. And I told him, well, you can cut the document vertically or horizontally or chop it in half depth-wise. You're not going to know if half your system works. This is the ultimate fate of manual testing. If you test manually, you always lose the tests because the tests become more and more and more expensive to run. And eventually the accountants will simply say, you can't spend that much money on tests. It will happen every time. I expect the tests will be automated. You may react and say, oh, that would be so much work to automate all the tests. Oh, no. Running them manually is work. Automating them is what we do. We're programmers. We know how to automate things, and it would be much less work. I expect nothing fragile in the system. I don't expect that module that always breaks. I don't expect that function that's always messed up. I expect nothing fragile in the system. No weak link in the design. No weak link in the structure of the code. I expect nothing fragile. I also expect that you and I, programmers, will cover for each other. And by that I mean this. From time to time, a programmer will go on vacation, or perhaps get sick, or maybe even change jobs. I expect that other programmers on the team already know how to deal with the code that programmer was working on. I expect that if Bob is the database guy, and if Bob gets sick, then someone else like Jack or Jill or James can come in and work on the database without any delay. I expect that we can cover for each other. If one of us goes down, someone else can cover that hole. That's what a team does. Teams cover for each other because people sometimes go down. Now, how would you learn to cover for each other? Well, I recommend that in order to cover for each other, you work together a lot, perhaps even at the same workstation. Maybe you work in pairs from time to time so that you are sitting with one of your coworkers working on the same problem for an hour or two so that you understand what the problem is and you know where the source code is and how you can check it out and what the design of that part of the system is so that if your partner goes down, you can continue to work. I expect that we will be able to cover for each other. I expect honest estimates. I expect when you are asked for an estimate, you will give an honest estimate. And the most honest estimate you can give is, I don't know. Because you don't know. You don't know how long it's going to take you to do something. On the other hand, I don't know is not a useful estimate. And I want you to produce useful estimates as well as honest estimates. So somehow you're going to have to take I don't know and put some kind of barrier around it. And this is the way I like to do it. When someone asks me how long it's going to take, I give them 3 numbers. I say, well, if everything goes perfectly, it'll take me a week. But if things go as they usually do, it'll take me 2 weeks. And if things go really badly, it could take me as long as 6 weeks. And then I wouldn't say anything more. And it'll be up to my boss and up to my managers to deal with that level of uncertainty, which, by the way, is their job. You see, managers have to do this thing called managing. And what they are managing is the uncertainty of all of the data that's out there, including all of the estimates. Now, of course, I would want you to improve your estimates every day. Every day, I would want you to go back to your boss and say, well, you know, it looks like things are going pretty well. So I've changed those numbers. Now I think it's about a half a week and maybe a week and a half and maybe 3 weeks. Yeah. And then the next day you might come back and say, well, things have gone a little worse and I'm going to have to grow those estimates again. I want you to keep your boss aware of how those 3 numbers are changing. But I always want you presenting those 3 numbers because it would be a lie to give 1 number. You can probably be pretty honest if you give those 3 numbers. And I expect you to say no when the answer is no. You are the ones who know. So you are the ones who need to say no when the answer is no. Your boss doesn't know. They don't know how to make software. They don't know what's in the software. They don't know what it's going to take. You are the one who knows. So when they give you a deadline, they say it must be done by X. If it can't be done by X, you need to be able to say no. You need to be able to say, I'm sorry, sir, or ma'am, or whatever, but that's not possible. And you're the only one who can say it, right? You're the only one who can say, you know, that's just not possible. You got to let them know. Otherwise, the whole business will run towards a deadline that it cannot meet. And promises will not be kept and commitments will be broken because you did not say no. Now, I don't want you to run off to your boss and go, no, 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 no. I want you to work very hard to figure out a way to say yes. But sometimes there is no yes. And you must not nod your head and say, well, okay, you know, I'll do whatever. You must be able to say no when the answer is no. And be aware that sometimes you will be asked this question, and be careful of this question. You will be asked to try. Will you at least try? And your answer to that must be no, because obviously you are already trying. It's almost insulting to be asked to try because you are already trying. You are already doing your best. So it makes no sense to be asked to try, and it makes no sense at all for you to say, yes, I'll try. Because when you say that, you are lying. You are lying because there's no change. You're not going to do anything different now because you said you would try. If you say, oh, yes, you're right, I will try. What you are really saying is that, I wasn't trying before. No, I was just being lazy before. Yeah, but now you're right, I should try. You must say no. We are already trying. We are doing the best we can. I'm sorry, but the thing you are asking cannot be done. I expect all those things. And with that, I shall bid you a fond farewell. I hope you enjoyed this very brief talk on expecting professionalism. Farewell, everyone. Enjoy your conference. And remember to be professional.
So very thanks, Bob. We have a few questions. So it's the first and I think it's the last question.
So the question seems to be, Uncle Bob, what software metrics and empirical methods do really help assisting software systems? There are so many metrics out there that are meaningless. There are a few that I have found useful over the years. But the most important thing is not the metrics. It is the act of keeping your code as clean as possible. Now, there are some metrics that can help you with that. Like one of those metrics is called cyclomatic complexity, which is really just a measure of the number of indents in a function. That you may find useful. Another metric that I have found useful is the number of lines of code per method. that number I want to be really, really small. I don't think functions should be longer than, 5, 6, 7 lines. I don't want them to be 20 lines or 30 lines or 40 lines. So I'd like to see a count of the number of lines per method as a measure of quality. I think that would be very, very, very useful. There are other metrics that are sometimes useful for measuring the way that dependencies cross inside of an application. And I will refer you to the books that I have written on that topic. I wrote a book recently called Clean Architecture, where I talk about that. I also wrote a book many years ago called Agile Software Development, in which I talk about those metrics. They're a little more complicated than I can deal with right now in this venue, but those metrics you may also find useful. Empirical methods, well, of the empirical methods that I think are out there that are the best are things like extreme programming and Scrum. Any of the agile methods are inherently empirical. They're all based on observational data. They're all based on lots and lots of feedback. I would be looking at Scrum, or better yet, extreme programming as an empirical method to help you run your software.
So we found all the questions.
So one more question. Let's see, how to grow as an engineering mindset. In software, one of the most important things you can do is read and study. This is not something that you learn in university. What you learn in university is the barest of beginnings, the basic stuff that might give you a help to get a job, but that's just the start. There is so much else to learn. So, for example, have you learned the design patterns? Do you have this book? Do you have the design patterns book? Have you read this book? Do you know the patterns in this book? Have you committed them to memory? Do you know Ivar Jakobsen's scheme for architecture? Have you read this book? Do you know what he's talking about when he talks about boundaries and interfaces and entities? Have you read the books that dominate our industry? There is 75 years of experience in software. All of it is relevant. The great mistake that young programmers make is that they think that everything is new and different now, and it's all that stuff that happened in the past is useless. That is utterly incorrect, right? All that stuff that happened in the past is immensely useful, and you must know it, and you must study it, and you must learn it. The future is based on the past, and you better understand what the past is. There's something really important you need to know as well. For the last 70 some odd years, we have been riding on a hardware wave. That hardware wave was growing at an incredible rate. It was called Moore's Law, right? And the speed of the speed of computers was doubling every 18 months. The space within a computer, the memory space, was doubling every 18 months. The space in our disks and the space on all our devices was doubling every 18 months. We were riding an exponential curve that took us from machines that had a cycle time of less than a megahertz to machines that now have a cycle time of 2.8 gigahertz. And that occurred over a very brief period of time, within my lifetime. Within my lifetime. I started working on a machine that looked like that. That little PDP-8 back there had a half microsecond cycle time. Here's one of the front panels sitting right there. That's from a real one. This was a fake one. That had 4K of core, 4K of memory. It had a half microsecond cycle time. We thought it was infinite. We thought we could do massive things with that. Now, of course, we look at, gigabytes as though they're throwaways and expect everything to be terabytes. And we want our clock rates to be way up in the gigahertz range. And we want multiple processors because we just can't seem to handle one processor in the gigahertz range. I want you to recognize that exponential curve stopped. It stopped in 2003. Since then, there have been very few hardware improvements. Clock rates have not gone up. Density has not increased. We've added a few more processors to our chips, but even that has stopped. And we are now on the plateau. The hardware has plateaued, and it's probably not going to increase very much over the next 5 or 6 decades. And I know quantum computing is coming. No, quantum computing is not coming, at least not in that sense. Because a quantum computer is an extremely limited device that cannot solve the general purpose problems that we have to solve. The hardware that we have today is pretty much going to be the hardware we're going to have for the next several decades. And that means that everything we have learned up to this point is going to remain relevant for many more decades. You want an engineering mindset? That's the challenge you've got to meet over the next several decades. The challenge of living on the hardware plateau. And with that, I must go. I have another appointment. Sorry, I cannot answer any more questions, but thank you all again for your attention. It's been a great joy for me to be here. Please enjoy your conference and adios, everybody. Must go.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you. Okay, guys. Thank you for watching. And now, Meerin, what we are going to do?
Yes, we have 20 minutes for the next presentation with Roman Kononov. And let me ask, maybe we will wait and go by agenda, or okay, so since next 20 minutes we will wait, you could check our agenda. So it will be start after 20 minutes by Roman Kononov, making best of a career and Scrum frameworks. So let's wait for 20 minutes. You could chat here. It's open. Networking is available here, but only in chat.
Hi, everyone. Hey, Sardar.
Hi, good to see you. And it's awesome that our event is going well. And my name is Sardar, and I'm the GDG lead Tashkent, and we are doing great, I think. And I would like to share some GDG story about ourselves. So, yeah. Hi, good to see you. And it's awesome that our event is going
Some
well.
duplicate sound.
My name is Sardar, and I'm the GDG lead Tashkent.
Oh, some technical problems.
So we were like welcoming GDG Tashkent and GDG Ashgabat. Hi.
GDG Nur-Sultan too.
And Almaty.
Hi everyone, guys. If you Sardar is going to...
It has device problems, so will appear later.
Maybe now. Sardar?
Yes, I'm here. Sorry.
Oh,
yeah,
good.
there were some technical problems. We can, as you know, GDG Tashkent is founded in 2018, and we are holding a couple of successful events since 2018. Before that, we held from 2015 Google I/O events with the from the Google I/O events, which were held from Mountain View, and the events for the local universities and etc. And as you know, we first held the DevFest 2018. We will have more than 800 participants and more than 15 speakers from local as well as from abroad. And our DevFest were in 2019, and we were having more than 1,000 registered participants, and on the event day we had 800 physical persons in the rooms, and it was awesome. And it was not only us, it was with the help of our local sponsors and the guys behind the GDG Tashkent. And it was very exciting to do this sort of events in Tashkent, because a lot of people in Tashkent is very interested in programming, and they want to share their knowledge, and they want to know each other very well. So we are happy that we are part of DevFest Central Asia, and we are making it. And thank you for your collaboration and that GDG Bishkek and the other GDG chapters. And we hope that in the future we can do more events and hackathons with you, with other GDG chapters as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. So guys, if you have some question for us or to GDG Bishkek and VTM Bishkek maybe, you can ask in the chat. We have actually 4 minutes, and then our next speaker, Roman Kondor, will start his presentation.
Kominfo, pertama overlay.
Oh,
Hi.
Hi, so you should be able to see my screen and you should hear me. Can you confirm?
Yes, now we get your screen.
Okay, and probably you could hear me pretty well.
Yes.
Okay, cool, nice.
So, everyone, here is Roman Kononov. Greetings to him.
Hey guys, so nice to meet you here during this event. So let me start my presentation. Probably you could see it. Yep, all good. So let me start. So about me, my name is Roman Kononov, and I'm an engineering manager at Uber. So here's my LinkedIn profile. So if you are interested, feel free to go there, add me to friends, and so on. So I've been managing people for last about 10, 12 years, maybe, and mostly in software development world. So everything related to this. And today I'm going to tell you a bit about OKR methodology, let's say framework, and Scrum. So it's also framework. So they are a bit different, but at the same time, you could merge them and use them both for your software development process. So let's begin then. So let's start with the OKR. So what does it mean? OKR is objectives and key results. So just a acronym of these three words. So it's a framework for defining and tracking objectives and their outcomes. So usually, and actually it consists of two words. So objective, this is the goal that you want to achieve. So this goal should be pretty clear, and specifically it should be pretty clear for, let's say, everyone. So any kind of people in your company or in your team or whatever. So because the clearness how you explain this and how you express this is the key point. And the key results, it's a specific measures used to track the achievement of that goal. So you should just know. So I will tell about this a bit later in details. So objective, first of all, clearly define it. It should be inspirational. It should be engaging. It should be aligned with the company strategy. So all the examples a bit later. So now just the definition and what should be inside. Also, it should be open source. So OKRs, they could be not only team OKRs, not only company OKRs, department OKR, so whatever OKR you want, but also it could be a person OKR. And those OKRs are very, very important, have to be available and browsable for everyone in the company. So anyone could see the details of OKRs of any other department. And that should be like a very strict rule, because this is a very, very huge importance here. So also OKRs, they should be stretched. So it does not make any sense to have just a very, let's say, achievable. So in terms of there is another acronym called SMART. So when you have very achievable tasks like specific, measurable, achievable, and so on. And this is not about OKRs. So OKRs should be stretched. You should not very easily achieve the goal and the objective that you have set before. So it should be something that is 60% definitely possible to done, or 80%, but not 100%. So that's why it should be stretched a bit more than you can do, a bit more that you could achieve. It should be separated from a compensation. This is very important one, because in other case, it would be not OKRs, but it would be rather KPIs, so key performance indicators instead of OKRs. So they should be detached. So whether you achieve 100% of OKRs or you do not achieve, it should not somehow related to your compensation and the salary or bonuses or whatever you do. So OKRs is not about that. And no, you should not connect them, because in other case, so like it's Hackathons, he said, just tell me what you pay for, and I will tell you what your people do. So if you connect OKRs to compensation, then don't expect that your OKRs would be stretched. So they would be achievable without any issues. And this is not about OKRs. Also, there shouldn't be a lot of OKRs, objectives per team per quarter, because usually teams are not so big. So usually it's about like 2 pizzas team, not more than 12 people, for example. It could be from 7 to 12 people. And for this team, it doesn't make sense to have a lot of OKRs. So it should be 3 or 5, from 3 to 5. And because you want this team to be very focused during the quarter. And you want this team to achieve those OKRs. If you have too many, it doesn't make sense, because in this case, you would lose focus all the time because you have too much on your plate. So it doesn't make sense. And if you have less than 3, for example, just 1 objective, it also doesn't make sense, because it's clearly just a part of your strategy, not something like OKR. Also, there is a nested cadence. So OKRs could be on different levels. So quarter OKRs, half of year OKRs, and year OKRs. So they could be nested. For example, you have one huge strategy for your year, and based on the strategy, you could define OKRs for your team. But at the same time, to reach those OKRs, you could split them into smaller pieces for half of year and quarter OKRs. And the last thing, which is related to objectives, they should be adaptable. So it doesn't mean that they are written in stone. So be agile, be flexible, and from time to time, it makes sense to review OKRs, review your pace, review your progress, and make a decision about changing them. So it's completely up to the team to decide whether you could achieve or you could not achieve something. And based on this decision, you could change your OKR or tune them or update them. So it's possible, it is doable, and it is just a common sense. The second part of this framework, it's KRs. So KRs are very different. So first of all, you should have 3-5 KRs per objective. It could be either number or milestone. So it should define the success criteria, whether you have achieved this objective or you haven't yet. Every KR should have a business value. It should represent the business value. For example, so also examples are a bit later, but I could try to explain. For example, you have objective. I want to get, let's say, half of this market in this specific country. And this is objective. It's very clear. It has business value. It's, let's say, flexible half. It also could be stretched goal. So, but it's clearly defined. It has business value. So we could split this to a couple of KRs, so key results. And for key results, we could define the size of the market, for example, in amount of customers. So it means that to gain the half of the market, you should at least gain half of the customers in terms of amount of customers, half of the, for example, the volume of, I don't know, sell volume or something. So like different numbers, like financial attributes. And based on these numbers, you could define whether you have achieved it or you haven't yet. So this is success criteria. So whether you achieved all of the QRs, you could say, I achieved this specific objective. So this is like attributes or progress meters of this specific objective. So business value, and they should be, all of them should be measurable. And very important, all of these KRs should be measurable upfront. So you should, or actually not only when I say you, I mean team. So team should know what kind of key results they want to achieve. What are those key results now? So in terms of, for example, half of the market, I know what is the amount of sales in this specific region and what the amount I want to achieve in the future. So I can say for sure that the current key result is, the current number of key result is this, and I want to achieve that. So this is measurable upfront. I know what I want to achieve, and also it's limited in time. So I want to do this. I want to close this objective in half of year or in quarter. So usually they are quarterly OKRs, because for half of year OKRs, they also make sense, but it's a bit harder to predict for half of year, especially when you do software development or when you develop the product or you are a startup. So the world is changing pretty quickly, and you have to keep up with all of these changes, and that's why just follow this principle and use, let's say, quarterly OKRs. And in this case, you have to know and you have to understand what are the numbers right now and what are the numbers you want to achieve. So numbers are key results, but also it could be not only numbers, but it could be milestone. So for example, improve the user experience of customers who are using our product, who use our product. And based on this objective, so this is like objective. It has business value, but we should define this objective. I think, yeah, we could define objective in a number of different key results. So what does it mean, improve the user experience? It means that, for example, I want to reduce the time of users spending on our landing page or in our, I don't know, some internal pages or doing some specific things in our product. So improving the user experience, less clicks or less time. This is very measurable. So now user to, let's say, average user who spends time on our website makes, let's say, 5 clicks to reach his goal. And I want to reduce this number to 1 click. So maybe you have heard about Amazon one-click buy. So this is exactly the same. So they just set the objective, improve the user experience, increase the amount of sales, and one of the key results, reduce the number of goals. So 1-click buy. That is very clear. Okay, so why? Why do we need this goal-setting framework? So first of all, it focuses effort on a business value. So when you know for sure what you do, why you do this, and you know exactly what and why you are working on. So every person in the team, they don't just blindly do whatever you said to them before or whatever product manager put on your roadmap, on your desk, on your plate. And they know exactly why I'm working on this feature. So they know answer, and not in terms of, okay, because that guy asked me. No, nothing like this. But the right answer is because we need this to achieve the business goal. We need this to make more money, to, say, spend less money, or to improve the user experience and gain some money in the future, or maybe to comply with some kind of authorities compliance or authorities process. So this is about it. And every team member knows this. Transparency and a progress measuring. So for transparency, it's very important that not only your team understand what they do and why they do, but also the other teams or other managers, or like a completely third-party person from a different team in a huge company. He could go to you directly and ask, what are you working on and why are you working on this? And you could clearly explain, like, here are my OKRs, here are my objectives, and that is why I'm working on this. And that would be even clear for him. And it's very easy to measure the progress. So you could say, okay, with this objective, I have closed this and this key result, but I haven't closed this. I'm working on this, and here are like a list of tasks that I have to close before end of this quarter. So this is goal setting. It also establishes communication. So for example, if 2 different teams, they are working on a very similar feature, you know exactly what are they focusing on and why are they focusing on specifically on this, because you have a business objectives. They are aligned with the business strategy of the company, and you could just compare. And in case if your objectives are very close to their objectives, you could collaborate and actually deliver even more than you could just deliver by yourself, which is much better. So this is a way of communicating with other teams. Because if you just start explaining, like, I'm working on this feature that would change this this feature in this project, or I want to introduce this, it is a bit hard sometimes to even understand why are you working on this now, and what exactly does that mean. So like these questions, it's very hard to answer when you are not in context of their tasks, of their project. So that's why it's better to talk on the same language, business language. It also improves your planning process. It's easier when you have a limited set of objectives, when those objectives are very aligned with the business strategy. And it's easier to just have some plans and easier to deliver those plans and explain those plans to any kind of management. It improves your involvement and ownership. So when you explain the objective for your team members, for other team members, so usually, and actually this is kind of the rule, that all of the developers, all of the engineers, they are very smart people and they know better what to do. And they know better why we need to do this. And when you set the business goal and explain what does that mean and why we should work on this, they could share their ideas and maybe more features that could be implemented in your product to reach this business goal. So that's why it's very important and it's easy to use. So some examples: improve customer satisfaction. So this is the objective, and of course the KRs would be, what does it mean, how we could measure the customer satisfaction. So we could do some NPS score, for example, Net Promoter Score, or we could collect some other numbers, I don't know. So whatever your ideas are, and need to make sure that we could measure and achieve this goal. So the next one, for example, improve conversion rate from 10% to 12%. So this is like a very clear business goal because it leads actually for some additional sales or for attracting more customers and also the same sales and money. Improve retention from one person to another person. So launch feature A or update feature B. So this is also should be aligned with the business strategy and should have a very clear explanation. So how does it work? So usually you have 3 different directions how you could get new objectives in your team. So top down, so whatever your management think you should work on, not more than 30%. Of course, there is a strategy of the company. There are some asks, external asks, other team asks. So top down, 30%, not more. Bottom top. So these are our ideas. So whatever we think could move us towards the goals and the business goals of the company. So bottom top, 60% usually. And peer-to-peer, of course, you are not alone. There are many other teams who could ask you about working on some features that are related to their features. For example, they have dependencies in your code, in your product, or you have dependencies. And you could ask them like, here's my dependency. I want you to focus on this because in this case, we could achieve this business goal. If it makes sense, let's just put this into your roadmap or list of OKRs. So this is usually how it goes. Common mistakes, too many OKRs. So when you have more than 5, I believe you won't be able to deliver even half of them. So just don't try to make too many of them. So OKRs are not features. You should not treat them as let's say, parts of your product or products. So it's business goals. No follow-up and retrospectives. So if you have delivered something, so for example, you reached your OKRs at 100%. So you should have a retrospective and you should think why this objective was not stretched. So usually it makes sense to achieve for 80%, maybe 60%, but you should have a retrospective after this and discuss and think why we have spent less or more time on this. No checkups. You should have checkups all the time. So you should have sync up meetings with your management, with other teams, and make sure that you show some progress and actually you are moving forward, that you don't have any obstacles or blockers or whatever you have. And OKRs are not a task list. Please do not do this. It's not a task list. It's a business goal at first. So Scrum process. why is this asterisk? Because it's a bit different. So I believe all of you saw this picture. So this is like from scrum.org, as far as I remember. So this is just the usual Scrum process when you have a product backlog, sprint planning process, sprint backlog. You have the sprint itself, retrospective review meetings, daily scrums, and potentially shippable product increment. So this is like a usual Scrum process. So why do you need this? And why Scrum? So I believe you heard the same recommendation from Uncle Bob, from the previous guy on this conference. So he preferred to use either Scrum or Kanban, if I'm not mistaken, but actually I prefer to use Scrum also. So it leads you to self-organizing teams. They have a shared leadership, and you remember OKRs are also about self-organizing teams who know better what we should work on and why we should work on. So this is very close. Iterative approach. So you have increments, and those increments are easy trackable. So after each increment, you could measure your key results and check whether you move in the right way or not. You have collaboration. So collaboration not only inside your team and have all the influence inside, but also collaborate with other people, collaborate with other teams, other organizations, departments, and whatever. So OKRs will also force you to do this. Transparency, easily tracked progress. So what I just said, it's the same in OKRs. So you have a very transparent process. You have this product increments, or in terms of objective key results framework, you have progress increments in key results. And also time boxing. So usually for Scrum, it's like 2 weeks. Sometimes more, sometimes less, it's up to you. And quality. So as Uncle Bob said, I'm going to refer to him more times today. So quality, so the developer should be responsible for quality, and actually you should have everything automated and high quality code, high quality product, so everyone owns the quality. So this is the team, how we look at it. So a lot of different feature teams, different roles. So we have product people, engineers, tech leads, data science analysts. We have TPMs, SRE, operations, engineers, leadership, and managers. So a lot of them. Team roles and responsibilities in terms of team. So the same as in Scrum. So team is responsible for break down the tasks, estimate the work, innovate, build, make sure it works, organize itself and its work per team agreements, and demo the results. Product owner. So in the OKR and actually in this version of Scrum, product owner usually is a product manager, technical product manager, team lead manager, or engineer manager. So any one of them could be a product owner for this specific project. Sometimes even engineers or developers. So the product owner creates, defines the product vision, owns the backlog, decomposition and clarity, aligns product strategy and OKRs across the team. So this is important ones because in our case, this specific guy responsible for the aligning the OKRs across the different teams. Also prioritize the work, the same person, represent the customers if you have them, and set and scores and updates the current progress for OKRs. Manager. So what manager does in this picture? So he creates tech vision and champion the tech roadmap, because beside of product roadmap, you also should have some kind of tech roadmap, which sometimes completely aligned or just copy whatever you have on a product roadmap. But sometimes there's also tech depth or some refactorings or some technical things that you want to work on. It aligns organizational objectives, remove impediments, set scores, OKRs, provides feedback, removes roadblocks, driving escalations if you need them, lead, hire, builds, on board, grow, mentor, groom, engage, and retain the team members. So it sounds like so performance reviews, team meetings, and one-on-ones. So this is specifically the people manager. So manager usually is a people manager plus maybe product owner. And this is a essence of the whole presentation, of whole today's presentation. So how does it work? So the left part, which is business vision, strategy plans, product vision, roadmaps, and business vision plus strategy plans, this is OKRs. So this is the left part, including grooming and planning. These are OKRs. So the process of planning, setting objectives, inheriting them, splitting them, merging them, recognizing them, and then finally from this product vision, business vision, different strategies, different enhancement, cost optimizations, hardening, improvements, fixes, experiments, features, we prepare the list of objectives, which on the grooming planning, we will split them into sprints, into, let's say, quarter. So like M1, M2, and 3, these are months. And this is 1 quarter, essentially. So, and we have quarterly OKRs here. And then quarterly OKRs are split by smaller monthly goals and sprint goals. So every one, let's say 1 quarter and 1 quarterly OKRs have 6 sprints for 2 weeks each. So we just take the objective, we see QRs, we decide what kind of features, what kind of tasks, what kind of code, what kind of product we should work on, we should focus on, then plan them for 1 quarter, split them by 6 sprints, and start working on. So then it's being put into team backlog, then into team sprints, and launch product, and then iterate back. Because this is like the constant process, and it's just it's in circle. So you just repeat everything every quarter, or even even more often. So OKRs and Scrum. So OKRs, it's objective and key results, is a goal-setting framework to manage business results. Scrum is an iterative, incremental collaboration framework for managing software development teams and products. So business meets software development, let's say. And OKRs will focus the teams to deliver objectives in Agile's value-based, where Agile can be perceived as losing predictability and deliverables. OKRs will help to prioritize the backlog to deliver predefined business results. And team will iterate to the agreed OKRs. So it's like a business and the software development, how we could align and how we could use a high-level strategy to just put this strategy and split this strategy into smaller pieces step by step, and make sure that we have more predictable, but at the same time, very agile and flexible process on the bottom. So like every engineer could work in Scrum, in sprints, doing Scrum, but at the same time, everything is aligned to the high-level business goals of the company. So the question is how to start. So this is domain cycle. First of all, plan, do, check, act, and then repeat. So without starting doing just simple, so just take OKRs as a framework, try to apply to your current work, try to set some basic OKRs, try to run this one quarter or 1 month, check what happens, check what kind of issues you have, then improve it, and then repeat it. So this is the best advice that I can give here. So this is the end of the presentation, and I'm waiting for any kind of questions. So I stopped sharing my...
Questions, Roman, we have a few questions.
How organizations and small business should adopt such frameworks? Does company size matter? So I can say for sure. So let's say if you have issues with the goal setting, if you have issues with reaching the goals of the company, and if you think that OKRs could help you to set the goals in a better way, then you could try this. Because every tool, it should be applied for a specific process. It does not mean that you shouldn't just blindly copy the tool if you think that it would align, it would help you. So you could try. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, just drop it. Does the company size matter? Yes. definitely, because for huge companies, it is very, very hard to use the goal set framework, because you would see a lot of copying, you could see a lot of duplicate initiatives running at the same time, spending money left and right. So a lot of things like this, a lot of chaos in big companies. The bigger company you have, the more such kind of issues you have. And this is it could be applied even for smaller companies. Whenever you have, let's say, 100 of people, you already started feeling such kind of issues. So you could try to apply objective key results framework and connect it to the agile that you probably have on your team level.
Thank you. We have another question from
How often do you refresh your OKR status with the team? So usually we have a couple of meetings. Let's say our OKRs are 1 quarter long, so we do plan them for 1 quarter. And inside we have, let's say, 2-3 week cadence to have internal meetings. And per quarter, we have 3-4, sometimes less meetings with our management to sync up on the current status. And also, it depends on the project, depends on the sprints that you have. Sometimes you just update all the key results after the sprint. So it's completely up to you. Just need to make sure that the team knows what and why. If they know, everything is great, and what the current state. The best way actually to have some kind of dashboard where you could just track down all the current numbers and see the results like online. How do you motivate engineers to participate in generating OKRs? So it's the same question as how do you have engineers to take part in all of this self-organization and self-organized teams? So you should just have very well motivated engineers. So just motivate them, work with them, manage them, listen to them, and then in this case they would be pretty involved into the process. So when engineers understand that they could change something in the process, when they could define the roadmap, when they are being listened, they are very motivated and they take part in the whole process. So I don't understand the question, actually.
Okay, thank you. Another question.
So actually what I was expecting, thank you, Maxime, for the question. We could discuss this later, but burn down chart, it's more about Scrum. So for OKRs, what do you use and what is the best way to track the progress? So usually you could just show, and actually OKRs are being mostly presented. So there are 2 ways of reporting, top to bottom. So when you actually inside the team, let's say inside the team, you could show the progress in numbers and persons in something that is pretty measurable, and everyone inside the team, they understand what does it mean. For bottom up, so like when you want to show the progress to your top management, so usually you could just say whether the the completeness progress, let's say the percentage, so from 0 to 100%, because this is the easiest way. Or you could even use let's say the colors, like red, yellow, green. So red is at risk, green, everything fine, is in progress, and yellow is kind of blocked, or we have some problems here. So the easier way to report to use, it's easier to just deliver this message.
Thank you, Roman. We are really grateful. As you know, Roman was a GDG lead in GDG Bishkek. So, hi.
Actually, now I'm GDG lead in this country.
Oh, great! So thank you. You are helping with to us much. Like in the past, DevFest, you were helping us too. So, bye.
Thank you, Raj, for inviting me to this great meeting. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Now,
our next speaker is Julius Yu.
Yes, Julius Yu. He will talk about scientific leadership. And here we go. Hi.
Hi.
Hey, hello.
How are you?
Very good. It's my second time talking in Central Asia. Very, very excited.
Great. So you was before in Kazakhstan, right?
I went to Kazakhstan last year to give a talk and explore Kazakhstan for about a week. I went around hiking and all. Wanted to go to Kyrgyzstan this time, but unfortunately, COVID kept me at home. So hope to visit someday.
Yes, that will be great if you come here.
I would love to come.
Okay, guys, if you have some question for the next speaker, to Julius Wu, you can ask in our comments line in YouTube. Okay, Julius, good luck.
All right, I need lots of that. Thank you. Hey everyone, so good to see you. And today we're going to talk about scientific leadership. And I hope that, from the two very, very good talks right before me, there's still something left to learn here. So let's see how it goes. Unfortunately, YouTube Live is about 10-15 seconds delayed. So when I start to ask a question, I might have to pause a bit, but hopefully this works just fine. So I want to start off by asking one question, which is this. In the video game industry, which do you think contributes to the highest revenue? Is it game design? Is it middle management? Or is it company brand? So I'll take a pause here, and then I'll kind of try to look at YouTube Live if there's any response to this, and then I'll proceed right after. So what comes from this research actually shows that it's actually the middle management that has the biggest contribution in terms of revenue, which is very, very interesting. Because if you think about it, unless you're an individual contributor, unless you're a software engineer who's dealing primarily with software, you are actually more likely to be a middle manager. And the thing is, as the chain of command goes up, the manager reports to his manager until eventually it reaches the CEO. And we're like, of course, there's no one higher than the CEO, right? However, it's quite interesting because in publicly traded companies or companies with investors, the CEO actually reports to the board of directors. And the CEO, as you might know, could get fired because the board of directors doesn't agree with the direction of the CEO. And we might think that, well, it ends with the board of directors, right? Well, not true. It turns out that the board of directors actually report to the investors. So in other words, oops. Okay, so I think I kind of missed something. Hello?
No, it's okay.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay. Okay, sounds good. So it turns out that the board of directors actually report to the investors, which is quite interesting because as you can see, everyone is actually a middle manager unless they're an individual contributor. What the research tells us then is that while the company brand and the product helps the company succeeds, the main contributor to the success of a company is actually the people. However, one thing that's extremely interesting that came out from a research done by Gallup is that only 1 out of 10 managers actually have the skill set to be an effective one. 2 out of 10 with enough training can actually be sufficiently good, but not great. So what that means is that, for the most part, we might actually be working under a manager that could need more help. What that also means is that companies with highly engaged employees, companies with very, very good middle managers are actually outperforming their peers by as much as 147%. Let me be clear here. We are not talking about 47% increase. We are talking about 147% increase. What this means is that they are actually effectively doubling their headcount and more without actually paying more, which means that so long as you have very good middle manager, research shows that you can extremely outperform your competitors by a significant margin. So today, we're going to talk about scientific leadership. I'm going to show you about a dozen or so more scientific research that talks about how we can improve our management skills as well as leadership skills, whether we are an individual contributor or a people manager. I work at Hubble. It's a construction tech company, and I'm actually from GDG Singapore, all the way from Southeast Asia. It's so good to be with you again. And let's look at a study called the Fairness Study. Take a look at this YouTube video. It's about 2 minutes long. Let's see how it goes.
So a final experiment that I want to mention to you is our fairness study. And so this became a very famous study, and there's now many more, because after we did this about 10 years ago, it became very well known. And we did that originally with capuchin monkeys, and I'm going to show you the first experiment that we did. It has now been done with dogs, and with birds, and with chimpanzees. But with Sarah Brosnan, we started out with capuchin monkeys. So what we did is we put 2 capuchin monkeys side by side. Again, these animals, they live in a group. They know each other. We take them out of the group, put them in a test chamber. And there's a very simple task that they need to do. And if you give both of them cucumber for the task, the 2 monkeys side by side, they're perfectly willing to do this 25 times in a row. So cucumber, even though it's really only water in my opinion, but cucumber is perfectly fine for them. Now, if you give the partner grapes, the food preferences of my capuchin monkeys correspond exactly with the prices in the supermarket. And so if you give them grapes, that's a far better food, then you create inequity between them. So that's the experiment we did. Recently, we videotaped it with new monkeys who had never done the task, thinking that maybe they would have a stronger reaction, and that turned out to be right. The one on the left is the monkey who gets cucumber. The one on the right is the one who gets grapes. The one who gets cucumber, note that the first piece of cucumber is perfectly fine. The first piece she eats. Then she sees the other one getting grape, and you will see what happens. So she gives a rock to us, that's the task. And we give her a piece of cucumber, and she eats it. The other one needs to give a rock to us. And that's what she does. And she gets a grape. And she eats it. The other one sees that. She gives a rock to us now, gets again cucumber. She tests the rock now against the wall. She needs to give it to us. And she gets cucumber again. So this is basically the Wall Street protest that you see here.
So notice what just happened. What happened is that the monkey, when he was given a cucumber, at first he was happy about it, no problem. But when he sees that the other monkey actually received grapes, he became extremely upset. Now think about it. Giving a rock in exchange for a cucumber is infinitely beneficial for the monkey, because a rock is meaningless. It has no value for the monkey, but a cucumber he can eat. However, the moment he sees the other monkey receiving grape, which is more tasty than a cucumber, he was extremely upset. Now, traditional economics for a very long period of time predicted that the monkey should have been happy even if he had received cucumber, because a cucumber has more value than a rock. But that's not what happened. Why? That's because the monkey is not fully rational. Now, we are not monkeys, some people might argue, but even humans, even dogs, even birds have the same tendency to actually look at things and evaluate it, not just from a fully rational perspective, but also with their emotions. In fact, there's another experiment that's done very similar to this, which is called the ultimatum game. So the way it works is like this. So what the experimenter does is that she tells the male guy right here to receive $100 bill from her, and then what he has to do is to split the $100 bill with the girl right next to him. Now, this is in full hearing of the girl. Now, here's the catch. If the girl rejects the split, meaning to say, if the guy gives an amount of money to the girl and she is not happy with it, nobody gets the money. But if she is happy with it, both of them gets the money. So think about it for a short instance. So suppose he splits the money $50 each, both of them would be happy enough, and then they would split the money, both of them gets the money. If he gives her $40, she will be probably happy enough to say yes, and then both of them gets the money. But think about it. What if he gives her only $5 and he keeps 95? The lower the amount of money he gives to her, the higher the chance that she will be upset about him, because for her, the other guy actually had $100. Giving her only $5 means that the other guy is not being fair to her. Now, traditional economics will say that so long as she received at least $1, she should have been happy. Reason is because she doesn't have anything in the first place. So, traditional economics rely on the theory that humans are rational creatures. That is true. However, recent studies in economics, which is called behavioral economics, predicts very, very differently. Behavioral economics includes emotions on top of rationality in order to understand how people make economic decisions. That having said, it's not very difficult to see how it's connected to our brain. The brain is an extremely complex organ, and so people who study neuroscience might say that we are dumping everything down here, which is actually true, but for the purposes of this talk, it will be good enough. So as part of our brain, there are two very important parts which we have to learn today, if we haven't done so. One is called the prefrontal cortex, and one is the amygdala. Now, the prefrontal cortex, what it does is that it regulates the rational behavior of our minds. So whenever we try to solve an algorithmic problem, whenever we do our QA processes, project management, whenever we do problem solving, the prefrontal cortex activates. That's what we regularly use. Now, we also have the amygdala. So what the amygdala does is that it's actually the fight or flight part of our brain. So what it does is that in moments that we feel negative emotions such as fear, anger, disgust, the amygdala activates. It tells our brain to actually either fight or actually flee. So that's the fight and flight part of the brain. Now, what's extremely interesting here is that when the amygdala activates, the prefrontal cortex deactivates, which explains why, in many, many occasions, when we are upset, when we are disgusted, when we are afraid, we tend to make decisions that we would later regret. That's just the nature of how our brain works. In a very similar fashion, what we have seen in the previous two experiments is a reflection of what we are seeing here. What does research tell us further about this? It turns out that in the medical field, about 71% of errors that has been made could have actually been avoided had the nurses and the doctors in general, medical professionals, have been using their prefrontal cortex. However, because of the sophistication and the pressure in the medical field, people's amygdala activates constantly. This caused as much as 27% of patient deaths that could have been avoided. In fact, another research in the US shows that as much as 80% of people lose time at work worrying about an incident due to incivility at work. And as you can see, there are other numbers here which has significant impact in the decrease in productivity of the workforce. So how do we solve this kind of problem? In the workplace, it's extremely important for us to establish psychological safety. At Google, they have 5 very important virtues whenever they evaluate management and the team. Psychological safety is number 1. In fact, even if they have 5 virtues that they actually follow, number 2 to number 5 is significantly less important than psychological safety. When people feel that they are psychologically safe, they are more likely to ask for help, admit errors, and seek feedback. In fact, they think that as long as I am psychologically safe, actions that could actually threaten me is no longer threatening for me because the team provides an avenue for me to express myself and express my needs so that altogether the team can prosper and likewise the organization. Another thing that's extremely important in a study done by Cornell University is that in the company, it's very, very common for us to have idea conflict. Which algorithm should we use? Which design pattern should we use? Which architecture pattern should we use? Do we do TDD? Do we not do TDD? Do we use Scrum? Do we use Kanban? Do we use OKR? Do we use KPI? There's a lot of ideas conflict. And in general, people have good intent. People are employed in a company in order to perform. People in general have good intent. However, in the absence of a good relationship, ideas conflict can actually descend into relationship conflict. And so it's extremely important to build trust from the CEO all the way down. What it does is that so long as you are able to build trust in the event of an idea conflict, the relationship is strong enough to actually defray any relationship anchor that could have accompanied idea conflict. One very important slide, perhaps one of the most important one for this talk, is that research shows that managers who listen, individual contributors who listen, in general, team members who listen, actually significantly increase the performance of the team. It's extremely important for us to take a pause, despite us needing or wanting to answer straight away, to listen to what other people has to say before we give our opinion. Another research shows that establishing positivity in the workplace creates a significant amount of benefit in terms of creative problem solving. One of the advice that Google actually gives to their managers is that instead of shooting ideas down, which are generally very raw when they are first proposed, one of the better questions that they ask their managers to ask their team members is to say, how can we make a particular idea work? That way, people are now more involved in actually solving problems than actually shooting ideas down. So again, our brain is playing tricks on us, so we need to optimize for brain function for the team to be effective. Here's number 2. Interestingly, we have to be very, very careful of confidence. Confidence is good if it's done and it's executed in the right level. The problem is that confidence makes us feel certain, not think certain. It makes us feel certain in the absence of sufficient supporting data. And that has nothing to do at all with the validity of the confidence. It has everything to do with our brain. It's because of the certainty effect as discovered in prospect theory. So what certainty effect does is that it's a cognitive bias that each one of us has, whereby we are more inclined to latch onto the feelings of certainty, even if the odds or the data says otherwise. Now, let me be clear here. Confidence has its value. Confidence is very useful in sales, it's very useful in marketing, but in software engineering in general, in professions that involves a significant amount of problem solving, confidence should not trump data. Here's a study done by Fu, Lee, and I don't know how to pronounce the other guy's name, but here's the idea. So what they did is they actually put different people together with varying degrees of sophistication in a certain activity. So what you can see here in the horizontal bar, in the horizontal graph, is that the least competent a person is, the more chances that they are overconfident about their skill. If you look at the blue bar, those who have less skills, look at number 1 and number 2, the blue bar is higher. But now, as they become more sophisticated, if you look at the red bar, they are actually underconfident. In fact, the better they are in this particular subject matter, the less confident they are, which is extremely tricky if you think about it, because we are conditioned to actually look at television, media, whereby people with a lot of confidence are actually out there explaining quote unquote reality to us. But when we look at scientific study, a different perspective emerges, whereby experts are actually less confident than non-experts. Another research by Dunning and Kruger, which many of you probably have known by now, is the Dunning-Kruger effect, whereby what it shows is that people who has very limited knowledge are usually the one who's overconfident because people overestimate their skills. But as they grow deeper into the subject matter, they start to lose that confidence which they used to have because now the well of knowledge opens up to them and they realize it's more sophisticated than what they initially thought. Another book by Tom Nichols, which was published about 2 or 3 years ago, says that in general, people lack the skill called metacognition, which is the ability to actually recognize that we are doing something wrong, our perspective is wrong, and taking a step back and re-evaluating whether our perspective is actually valid or not. Here's another research. There's a wall of text here, so you don't have to read it. You can just listen to what I have to say. So let me skip this slide and let me go back a few slides. So if you might recall in this slide, so what they did in that experiment is that they paired up people with different levels of confidence and make them perform a certain type of activity. So let's say, for example, you have someone who's overconfident but not very sophisticated, and someone who's underconfident but very sophisticated in the same subject matter, and they pair them up, and then they perform that activity. And they group together different pairs with different degrees of confidence and different degrees of skill. Now, what happened? It turns out that the bigger the gap between confidence and the subject matter expert, the worse they perform, which means that the unjustified role of confidence in decision making actually harms if the person with the most confidence is the one that's least sophisticated. So, in other words, it's very important for us to nuance between confidence and competence. Confidence is an illusion. In fact, a book published by Robert Burton, former chief neurologist, says that certainty is not biologically possible. So while we are conditioned to feel that certainty has a very good feeling to us, we need to learn to tolerate the unpleasantness of uncertainty because it's just biologically impossible to achieve. Again, our brain is playing tricks on us, and so in order to address this, we need to let the data speak. Confidence has its value in sales and marketing, but in software engineering and in general, in problem-solving professions, it's extremely important for us to let the data speak. Another interesting research is the science behind human motivation. In the industrial age, in the 1940s, 1950s, people have always noted that money is equal to performance. The bigger you pay the person, the better they perform. Now, in recent years, this perspective has actually been challenged a lot. So here's a problem that's done by Dunker. Here's the idea. So he has a candle, and he has a box of Thumbtacks, and he has a box of match. And so what he did was he wanted his subjects, meaning the people that he's experimenting with, to actually light the candle. But here's the catch. When he lights the candle, the candle wax should not melt and drip on the table. Now, I'm going to pause for about 15 seconds. And if you're interested to think about how to solve this problem, you can think about it. And after about 15 seconds, I'll actually show you the actual answer to it. And then I'll give you more details about what the research shows. So actually, here's one of the answer to the problem. So when I did the same talk in Singapore, some people actually have found other answers. But here's one of the ways to actually solve the problem. So in order for the wax to actually not melt on the table, you actually have to use the box in and put the candle on top of it, and then it doesn't go all the way down to the table. So what Dunker did was actually quite interesting. So what he did was he actually divided the group into two. So one group, he says that, okay, I'm just here to actually see on the average how much a person takes to actually solve the puzzle. But then in the other group, what he said was, okay, if you are the fastest 25%, I'm going to give you $5. And if you're the fastest, you get $20. So now, traditional study on human motivation will tell us that group B will actually perform better because, again, if you have money, then people in general will perform better. But it turns out that in the research, group B took 210 seconds longer to solve the puzzle. So what's going on? Super interesting. It turns out that research shows that so long as the task doesn't require creative problem solving, monetary rewards work. But the moment they have to do creative problem solving, which is what software engineers, what quality assurance engineers, what project managers do, it turns out to be a very, very different outcome. So why is that? The reason primarily is because we have very limited mental real estate. So the moment we use more mental real estate to try to win the race, to try to beat other people, the moment money is continuously in our heads, what happens is that we have less and less mental real estate to actually use for problem solving. So one of the suggestion actually is that I think this is also very similar to the one of the question that's being asked in the live chat is that when we pay people just enough for them to be sufficiently motivated to do their job well. So what that means is that we don't underpay people because they always have the money on their heads when they do their work. We also don't overpay people because the moment we do so, what happens is that people will take a step back and start thinking if they're contributing enough relative to the compensation they're receiving. So the most important for us to do is to actually pay people just enough to make them feel happy, feel validated, and then we provide them with as much intrinsic motivation as possible. So here are the three intrinsic motivation that's done by Daniel Pink in his book called Drive. So what he discovered is that there are three things that makes people intrinsically motivated. Number one, they need to feel that they're autonomous. They're free to do what they want to do and how they best do it. They also need to feel that they are increasing in their level of mastery in a certain subject matter. If they're interested in that subject matter and they're growing in it, they become more motivated. And the last one is that so long as they see a very good purpose in what they're doing, they will feel extremely motivated. So when the boss is able to provide all three, in general, the person stays in the company, they become productive in the company because they feel intrinsically motivated. Notice the word I'm using. I'm not using the word think, I'm using the word feel because while humans are thinkers, humans are feelers as well. In fact, emotions has a significant impact in the way we decide, in the way we operate as human beings. That's what the science says. Here's some CEOs and COOs that you might recognize here and there. You have Steve Jobs, you have Tim Cook, and a bunch of other people. Now, in Silicon Valley, they are extremely popular. But there's this one guy, Bill Campbell, CEO of Intuit, that doesn't enjoy the same limelight as the nine before him. But what's extremely interesting in Silicon Valley is that all nine of them are actually mentored by Bill Campbell. Bill Campbell passed away in 2015, and during his the time where people are mourning for his loss, it's a very unusual event whereby you have billionaires actually coming in, and it's a very rare event where they congregate together to celebrate the life of Bill Campbell. So Eric Schmidt, last year, he wrote this book along with a few other Googlers about the $1 trillion coach. It's called the $1 trillion because Bill Campbell actually mentored several CEOs of companies that eventually reached a $1 trillion valuation, such as Amazon and Apple. So as part of the research that they have done on how Bill Campbell did his leadership, is that Bill Campbell, in general, he emphasized on organizational compassion. So what this means is something extremely different from how we traditionally think of compassion in the organization. In general, we are told to actually leave our emotions out of the door as we enter the office, because the office is a different workplace, it's a different environment. But it turns out that from Bill Campbell's like leadership style, and also validated by several behavioral research, is that organizational compassion actually increase team productivity. And especially it works when the leaders are able to demonstrate that organizational compassion goes from all the way from the top to down. Another super interesting research done by Gallup is that it turns out that female managers are actually better than male managers. And what they found out is that the main reason why female are better than male managers is not because of gender, actually. It's primarily because female feel more empathy. They actually operate with empathy. And so it turns out that empathy is an extremely important management skill. It's an extremely important leadership skill. In fact, it's an extremely important life skill that everyone from individual contributors all the way until management and above needs to employ in order for us to produce better results, better productivity, and better output. Organizational compassion, as also research by George Mason, shows that there's lower absenteeism, better team performance, better teamwork, and higher employee satisfaction. So let me try to close off with the last few slides in my talk. Humans are emotional rational creatures. People have emotions. And so it also turns out that emotions dampen our productivity. And so how do we solve negative emotions? We establish psychological safety, we build trust, we establish positivity in the workplace, and we always listen. We need to be very careful of confidence, and we always need to use hard data as evidence. Remember, competence is not confidence. We need to be able to differentiate both. Humans are driven by extrinsic and intrinsic motivation. And so, in general, it's good to pay people just enough and then provide them with as much intrinsic motivation as possible. And to wrap it all up, it's important for us to emphasize organizational compassion. Here are some books about leadership that you might be interested in. The second book is quite interesting because it tells us a very, very different view of leadership that you won't see in books from people like John Maxwell and Simon Sinek. It's a very well-researched book. It's a very strong recommendation. Here's another set of books. The second one, interestingly, it's very similar to what Roman spoke about just now. It talks about OKRs and extremely helpful as well. Here's a final set of books that you might find extremely interesting as well. Since there will be a recording of this later on, you can actually go back to the video and actually see more of it. And finally, some references. I'm not sure if anyone is interested with it. You can always go back to the video if you want to. And here are some more references and some more references. Once again, thank you so much. It's so good to be with you all. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you, Luz.
Thank you.
Guys, if you have some question to our speaker, you can ask it now. Meerin, have you got a question?
No, actually. For the current time, I have no questions.
All right, that's good. For me, I guess.
So let's wait for a little. Maybe someone already typing. Выведи вот это пока что. Что спросить?
Oh, thank you, Alexandra. I really appreciate it.
Oh, we have a question.
Yeah. So the question is, how organizations should motivate the team, materialistic or non-materialistic? So it turns out that different people have actually different types of motivation. So whenever a person joins a company, it's not clear what they're looking for. So it's important for the manager to actually find out. So that's how one-on-ones become important. I think in Roman's talk, he actually mentioned a little bit about one-on-ones. So what one-on-one does is that it allows the manager to see what the employee is looking for within the company. Some people actually take pay cuts to join the company, which means that when they join the company, they're not looking for money, they're looking for experience, they're looking for learning. A lot of people will actually take a lower salary in exchange for things to learn. So it's very important for the management team to actually know what the person is looking for and actually provide it to them. So yes, there are certain trade-offs. One axiom in running a company is that it's very important for the leaders of the company to minimize the amount of resource needed to achieve an organizational goal. So what that means is that if we are actually able to reduce the amount of cost in order to keep people happy, that would be a good option to go for. And so it's a case-to-case basis. There's no one-size-fits-all. It can only be known when the manager knows what the person needs and wants and be able to actually provide it for them, so long as it's something that the company is able to do so.
So thanks
Thank
very,
you.
thank you very, Julius. It was really interesting for us. We really love your presentation.
Thank you.
So we have last question.
So the question is, so the fact that money can motivate only if the task doesn't require creativity, what if by getting money, people start thinking about time when they already had gained the money? I'm not sure I understand this question. I'm very sorry. I don't think I understand this question.
Oh dear.
Yeah, maybe I can respond in the chat, so that I don't block the time.
Okay. Really?
So here come one question. Sorry, it's really last question. About which characteristics should have true leader?
Very interesting. So this is not part of my talk, but it's part of the second book that I mentioned. If you don't mind, I'll share the slide. So the second book, right here, the book called The New Psychology of Leadership. So what the research says is that the best predictor of a good leader is actually fairness. So when a leader is perceived to be fair, he's actually able to influence significantly more than any other quality. So while companies like Google, for example, actually pushes people to be humble, to be respectful, and to build trust, it turns out that all of them are trumped by fairness. So fairness is the most important quality a leader should have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What? Okay. We have not any questions. So, okay, Yunus, thank you. Goodbye. Have a nice week. Have a nice weekend.
Thank you. Have a good weekend. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. So, guys,
How are you?
I'm good.
Askar. Askar from
So I go
GDG. Sorry.
Hello.
Askar from GDG Kazakhstan. Nur Sultan, right?
Yeah, now it's already Almaty.
So actually, Meerin and Kalicha should leave, and Askar Baris will moderate you.
Yes, guys. Nice to meet you all. Have a nice weekend. Welcome to DevFest 2020 Central Asia. Good luck, everyone. Bye.
Bye. Thank you. Cool. Okay, Askar. So the event is going well. I think we have one more speaker, right?
Yeah. Would you like me to just mute myself and put the speaker on the?
Yes, please. Go ahead. Hello.
Добрый вечер. Меня слышно?
Добрый
Отлично,
вечер.
я...
Hello. Yes.
Здрасте.
This is Said Ravshan from, I guess, Tashkent. So welcome, Said Ravshan. We could switch to Russian if you're comfortable. And there is Baris, our community lead of all Central Asian and Caucasus community from Google.
Nice to meet you. You can speak Russian. I'll try to understand.
Nice to meet you too.
Спасибо за ваше время. Добро пожаловать. И вам слово по вашему докладу.
Спасибо большое.
Смотрят порядка...
Спасибо большое, Оскар.
У нас порядка 45 человек сейчас лайв, и многие будут смотреть еще в записи.
Отлично, отлично. Супер. Спасибо большое, Оскар. Хотел немножко коротко рассказать о себе. Я не живу в Ташкенте, как вы сказали, я живу в провинции Бухара, город Бухара. И сейчас позвольте мне поделиться презентацией. Видно, да?
Да, я теперь поставил.
Отлично. Отлично, супер. Позвольте коротко рассказать о себе. Я уже 10 лет занимаюсь программированием, чуть больше 10 лет. Начал с 14 лет. То есть я начал изучать программирование, когда у меня даже не было интернета. Вы знаете, такая интересная история. Когда я начинал, я сначала начал с фотошопа, потом потихонечку перешел на программирование. И, знаете, я вот экономил карманные деньги, пешком ходил в лицей, обратно копил деньги, чтобы купить диски с уроками. И, слава богу, мои первые инвестиции на знания окупились с головой. И вот я уже 10 лет занимаюсь программированием, перепробовал все сферы, работал и data scientist, и веб-разработчиком, и мобильным разработчиком, DevOps, Team Lead, все сферы перепробовал. И, вы знаете, в какой-то момент я понял, что я не хочу всю жизнь программировать, хотя я вот прям получал удовольствие от этого, но все равно я решил, что я не буду всю жизнь этим заниматься, потому что, представьте, я уже 10 лет с утра до поздна, где-то 10-12 часов в день сижу у компьютера и пишу код. Я перепробовал все. И, знаете, и в какой-то момент я подумал, что все, я должен стать предпринимателем, я должен заниматься бизнесом и так далее. И где-то 4 года назад я запустил свой первый стартап, был провал, потом второй, третий, четвертый. И в конечном итоге я почти 7 стартапов запускал, и все они, к сожалению, были провальными. И вот мой последний стартап, тьфу-тьфу, не сглазить, сейчас уже, слава богу, нормально идет. И я сегодня хотел коротко рассказать о своем опыте, на что я конкретно обращаю внимание, какие у меня приоритеты, какие принципы. И коротко постараюсь рассказать о нашей компании. Кстати, я вхожу в топ-3% программистов по версии toptal.com, и на сегодняшний день, до этого дня, я участвовал почти в 40 проектов мирового уровня. и как мобильный разработчик.
Это элита программистов. Топ-3 это очень тяжело, большой показатель.
Да, спасибо.
Топ-3%.
Да. И знаете, вот где-то год назад у меня было выгорание, и вот из-за того, что я слишком много работал, слишком много кодил, вот, не знаю, было выгорание, и в какой-то момент вот сяду писать код, и вот не работает, да? И в этот момент я решил, все, не буду заниматься программированием, и начал выбирать другие сферы. Хотел переключиться на маркетинг, диджитал-маркетинг и менеджмент, да? Перечитал несколько десятков книг, и потом решил стать диджитал-маркетологом, и смотрю, какие там зарплаты по сравнению с программистами, у них чуть ниже, да? Поэтому, и плюс у меня опыта мало. Я вот, представьте, получаю как сеньор-разработчик-программист, и переходя на другой отрасль, я как бы там джуниор, там новичок, и то есть, да, зарплата меня не устраивала, и я понял горькую правду. Когда у меня есть компьютер, я программист, сеньор-разработчик, консультант и так далее, и так далее. А если отобрать у меня компьютер, все, я как бы ничего больше не умею. Поэтому решил, все, я буду использовать мои IT-навыки и плюс буду практиковать те знания, которые я получил, когда хотел стать маркетологом и менеджером, и решил открыть компанию. В первую очередь, мне нужна была хорошая идея, с чего начать, какой стартап запустить. Я до этого очень много стартапов запускал, к сожалению, все были провальными, и в какой-то момент я подумал, что у меня лучше всего получается. Это разработать приложение, программы. И именно поэтому я решил взять самую простую идею, открыть аутсорсинговую компанию. То есть мы принимаем заказы в основном с Америки, с Европы и так далее, и так далее. И то есть мы разрабатываем программы, да, у нас тут. Почему я выбрал такую простую идею? Потому что, посмотрите, вот сейчас сфера IT – это как золотая лихорадка. Вы знаете горькую статистику, что вот 98%, в среднем 98% стартапов, они терпят провал, да? Только 2% взлетают, к сожалению. Но это как золотая лихорадка. Если у вас получается, вы станете очень богатым и успешным. Да? Если не получится, все, провал. Я не хотел рискнуть. И вы знаете, есть такое понятие, как во время золотой лихорадки выигрыш остается только производителю лопаток. То есть поэтому я не стал уже дальше заниматься поиском золота и решил производить лопату для тех, кто будет дальше искать золото. И вы знаете, слава богу, что-то уже получается. И вот решил заниматься только аутсорсингом, но потом решил так. Посмотрите, когда вы собираете команду, да, большую команду программистов, и находите клиентов, вы должны постоянно держать баланс между разработчиками и клиентами. И бывают такие моменты, когда ваши программисты сидят без дела, потому что нет клиента. Да? В такие моменты мы начали уже разрабатывать свои стартапы. Мы начали делать CRM-ку для учебных заведений, и на данный момент уже начали продавать, и получается у нас помимо аутсорса есть стартап. Помимо этого, вот наша компания находится в городе Бухара, здесь IT-инфраструктура в целом, IT-комьюнити не развита вообще, и вот была острая проблема с кадрами, то есть нужно нанять людей, есть очень много заказов. За все это время, когда я работал фрилансером, у меня, как сказать, сформировалась клиентская база, и очень много заказов, но нет ребят, кто будет мне помогать все это реализовать. Да? И мы решили открыть школу программистов здесь, в Бухаре. Запустили Monday Academy. Первый месяц набрали одну группу, потом вторую, третью и так далее, и так далее. И после пандемии нам пришлось перейти в онлайн, и мне кажется, это лучшее, что случилось с Академией, потому что мы начали ориентироваться на весь рынок Узбекистана. То есть у нас сейчас студенты со всего Узбекистана. И сейчас это как отдельный бизнес работает, академия, то есть у нас школа программирования отдельно как бизнес работает, независимо от основной компании.
Видеозаписи? Или вы видеозаписи делаете, либо лайв-менторшип?
Лайв. У нас лайв. У нас лайв. И на данный момент мы работаем над платформой, чтобы не преподавать через Zoom, а вот специальная платформа, где можно читать статьи, проходить тесты, ну, и так далее, и так далее. Не только, да, вот есть аналоги Geekbrains, Skillbox и так далее, и так далее. И мы хотим что-то вроде этого, только немножко по-другому. У нас тут, в Узбекистане, хотим это реализовать. Так вот, вот это стартап, получается. То есть наша компания Monday Labs на данный момент структура такая, да, как хаб, вот в середине Monday Labs, и отсюда уже выходят другие стартапы. Наша CRM-ка и Академия. И помимо этого мы работаем над еще одним стартапом. Скоро, дай бог, объявим об этом. Так вот, то есть, получается, мы сами занимаемся поиском клиентов, мы сами занимаемся маркетингом, мы сами занимаемся подготовкой кадров с нуля, так как у нас проблема с кадрами. Мы, то есть, берем ребят с нуля, подготавливаем у нас в академии и берем самых лучших, самых талантливых и их берем на стажировку и дальше подготавливаем, чтобы они могли уже работать над сложными проектами. Да? Так вот, что касается детей, идем дальше. Ох, черт, я немножко опередил слайд и рассказал про команду тоже.
Хороший слайд.
Так вот, да. Чтобы начать бизнес, мне нужна была хорошая команда, а хорошие кадры всегда проблема везде. Да? Поэтому мы почти всегда берем новичков и сами подготавливаем. Есть минус этого подхода, так как это занимает очень много времени, и плюс это, как вам сказать, все сотрудники, они учатся на ошибках, а ошибки стоят дорого как бы для нас. Но есть плюс, такие сотрудники, они очень лояльны, так как они вот искали знания, они искали опыт, и мы взяли им, научили их, то есть дали что-то, дали инструмент, да? И поэтому они намного лояльнее, чем более компетентные сотрудники, которых мы нанимаем, да? И в этом плане, когда вы берете новичков и подготавливаете их, они, на мой взгляд, они более лояльные. Хорошо, идемте дальше. Дальше я очень сильный упор делаю на KPI и метрики. Да, почему? Потому что, посмотрите, вот вслепую вести бизнес, мне кажется, не имеет смысла. Вот, например, мы постоянно проводим survey, то есть опросы среди наших клиентов, насколько они довольны, насколько вовремя мы даем, наша команда дает результаты и так далее, и так далее. На основе этих данных мы уже как бы принимаем решение. Это очень важный аспект. Немножко остановлюсь на этом моменте. Я немножко хотел рассказать про Lean Startup. Наверное, все тут читали эту книжку, замечательную книжку «Бизнес с нуля» называется. Это Коран, это Библия любого стартапера. Если кто-то собирается начать свой стартап, я очень рекомендую читать эту книжку «Lean Startup подход». Книжка называется «Бизнес с нуля». Так вот, идея этой книжки очень простая. Есть 3 этапа разработки любого продукта или сервиса. В первую очередь вы разрабатываете продукт. Вторым делом вы измеряете, то есть собираете данные, метрики, изучаете все эти данные на основе этих данных. Третий этап, получается, принимаете решение, учитесь, то есть на основе этих данных учитесь. И потом круг замкнулся, и вот так по кругу идет. Вы улучшаете свой сервис, свой продукт, исходя из тех данных, которые вы получили, а потом опять измеряете. И вот таким вот циклом идет развитие компании. Чтобы внедрить именно вот этот подход, нам очень необходимо собирать данные. Сколько людей заходит к вам на сайт, какая у вас воронка продаж, сколько стоит один лид, например, сколько вы потратили на рекламу, чтобы привлечь одного клиента. Если, ну, логично, если с одного клиента вы зарабатываете, например, 5 сумм, да, и чтобы привлечь этого человека, вы тратите 7 сумм, это убыточный маркетинг получается. Вы должны тратить меньше, чем зарабатываете. Да. Чтобы понять все это, вы должны постоянно измерять рентабельность бизнеса, стоимость лидов, стоимость клиентов, это разные понятия, воронка продаж, чтобы вы постоянно видели, в каком этапе вы теряете клиентов. И у нас KPI метрики везде, то есть, например, отдел продаж, мы проводим анонимные звонки, чтобы проверить, насколько качественно наш отдел продаж отвечает на звонки. И исходя из этого мы ставим оценки, и в конце месяца от этого как бы зависит зарплата отдела продаж. Сколько баллов собирает, столько и получает. Что-то вроде этого. Отдел продаж, отдел маркетинга, учителя вот, в Monday Академии. У нас везде метрики, KPI. Ну, давайте идем дальше. Систематизация.
Вот вопросы после, да, будем задавать, там некоторые вопросы. Ну, что вас не перебивать, просто мы после доклада.
Хорошо. И немножко хотел рассказать про систематизацию процессов и систематизацию бизнеса. В целом, мне кажется, те стартапы, которые идут к успеху изначально, да, потом терпят крах, потому что у основателя, у лидера умирает мотивация, то есть нет больше энтузиазма. Человек устал уже, у него выгорание, и в какой-то момент говорит, пошло все, короче. И из-за этого многие стартапы терпят крах. Чтобы избежать этого, нужно систематизировать все бизнес-процессы, пока не автоматизировать. Сначала систематизировать, потом только можно перейти к автоматизации. Что я имею в виду? Если основатель компании, основатель стартапа будет заниматься всеми подряд, этот человек быстро устанет, быстро, как сказать, у него быстро произойдет выгорание и умрет энтузиазм. Да? Именно поэтому нужно сделать такую систему в бизнесе, чтобы бизнес работал и без вас. То есть такое понятие, как эффект автобуса. Немножко такой, как сказать, ну ладно, расскажу. Есть такое понятие, как эффект автобуса. Это показатель, сколько сотрудников должен сбить автобус, не дай бог, чтобы ваш бизнес, ваш проект умер. Например, не дай бог, если вас собьет автобус, получается, ваш бизнес все умер, да? Или ключевого сотрудника, не дай бог, собьет автобус. Не знаю, почему так назвали. Мне вообще не нравится, как это вообще называется, эффект автобуса, черт. Ну, в целом суть понятна, да? Если один человек, скажем, уйдет с работы, бизнес должен продолжать работать. Bottleneck'ом, то есть бутылочным горлышком, в основном становятся именно основатели, потому что они должны принимать решения за всех, за всю команду, они должны делать все сами, потому что никто не может делать так хорошо, как они думают. Да? Поэтому все нужно систематизировать, все нужно прописать, кто чем должен заниматься, в каких ситуациях какие решения должен принимать. У людей, у всех сотрудников, у всех постов должна быть должностная папка, где все регламентировано, какие у нас принципы, какие ценности компании, какая мотивация и так далее, и так далее. Вот эти все моменты, все аспекты нужно систематизировать. Потом только можно приступить к автоматизации. Дальше. Насчет цели тоже хотел поговорить. Посмотрите, чтобы добиться успеха, постоянно нужно четко знать, четко видеть, куда вы хотите идти, в какую сторону вы хотите идти. Вот если вы, например, начали проект, и при этом вы четко не понимаете, четко не видите будущее этой компании, например, через 3 года, через 5 лет и так далее, у вас вряд ли что-то получится, потому что, вы посмотрите, обычно основатели, обычно стартаперы, они очень люди с энтузиазмом, с амбициями, да? То есть, но при этом не знать, куда бежать, это, на мой взгляд, глупо. Вот посмотрите, стартаперы очень амбициозные, они как бы бегают очень быстро, но при этом не знают, куда бежать. И поэтому с точки А в точку Б попасть будет трудновато, скажем так. Вы должны четко знать, какие у вас финансовые цели, какие у вас, как вы видите будущее компании, где ваш офис находится, сколько сотрудников, какие у вас клиенты, чем вы занимаетесь, чем вы не занимаетесь. Вот, например, я на данный момент участвую во всех процессах у меня в бизнесе, и вот планирую, уже потихонечку начинаю, как сказать, систематизировать мой бизнес, то есть веду систематизацию, чтобы без меня тоже компания работала. И плюс не просто работала, а развивалась, потому что если компания стоит на месте, это означает деградация. То есть стартапы, проекты, компании не стоят на месте. Они либо растут, либо деградируют. Поэтому нужно сделать такую систему, чтобы компания сама еще и развивалась. Здесь очень много, как сказать, трюков, инструментов, работа с мотивациями и так далее, и так далее. То есть вы четко должны понимать, какие у вас планы. Иначе просто будете ходить туда-сюда, как ежик в тумане. Спасибо. Я, по-моему, быстро закончил, да?
Спасибо большое, очень интересно. Тут у нас, давайте мы... Я буду выводить по очереди. От Каличи, что было сложного в переходе из программиста в стартаперы?
Сложнее всего было, знаете, вот программист, они люди такие, что вот им постоянно нужно четко понимать, четко все видеть, все контролировать, у них все в цифрах, то есть у них все должно быть под контролем. А в бизнесе очень много неопределенности, темный лес, вы не знаете, что будет, как будет, риск. И плюс, вы знаете, вот, например, в каждой компании должны быть ценности, в каждой компании должны быть цели, что еще, видение, да, и так далее, и так далее. А все это как бы совмещать с мозгом программиста очень трудно, потому что программисты только видят какие-то алгоритмы, какие-то цифры, а бизнес – это совсем другое, поэтому было трудно. Если вы сейчас являетесь программистом и хотите перекочевать в бизнес, я бы порекомендовал вам сначала полностью, не знаю, хотя бы 10-15 книжек по маркетингу, по менеджменту прочитать, чтобы немножко поменять мировоззрение. Что трудного? Вот посмотрите, если вы технарь, вы будете больше сфокусироваться на техническую часть бизнеса, вы не будете обращать внимание на маркетинг, на финансы, у вас будет бардак в финансах, у вас будет бардак в маркетинге, вы не знаете, откуда идут клиенты. То есть именно вот эта вот проблема, да? Поэтому в первую очередь любой программист, кто хочет стать бизнесменом, должен поменять немножко мировоззрение и понять, что техническая часть – это всего лишь, ну, там, 10-15% всего бизнеса. Есть и юридические аспекты, есть финансовые, есть маркетинг, работа с клиентами и так далее, работа с командой. И вот постоянно задаю себе вопрос, насколько я сфокусируюсь на данный момент на технической части. И, вы знаете, часто бывает, что вот лично у нас в компании, вот что касается технического отдела, у нас там все систематизировано, все вот, как сказать, все как швейцарские часы работает. А что касается финансов, маркетинга, немножко хромает. Ну, это потому что я в первую очередь программист, а потом только предприниматель. Может, поэтому.
То есть ключ – это майндсет, мировоззрение, то есть резюмируя это, нужно перестраивать. Да? Спасибо. Следующий вопрос от Лейлы. Как поступить в сайт? Мне перевести или удобнее вам прочитать?
Да, можете. Не, лучше перевести.
Не всем видно. Вопрос. Вот Лейла хочет с друзьями открыть компанию для разработки веб-разработки, разработки мобильных приложений. Но конкуренция в этой сфере большая. Именно таких компаний много. С чего начать, на чем сфокусироваться? Есть продолжение этого вопроса. Вот по поводу фокуса. Сфокусироваться ли на нейминге, названии компании, либо начать работать, как я понял, и уже потом по ходу разбираться. И тут еще вопросы от Лейлы, продолжение. Какой минимальный капитал в компании должен быть для открытия? Ну, тут прям бизнесовый. Где найти первых клиентов? Как, я не знаю, тут очень как бы по очереди, как решить, сколько ценообразование, да, как построить ценообразование. Тут, наверное, вопрос большой, и это отчасти связан с тем, что я тоже хотел задать, поэтому давайте сразу свой тоже задам вопрос. Мы сегодня в Алмате обсуждали эту модель в целом развития, ну, в том числе аутсорсинг, продажи продуктов за рубежом. Вот, ну, я лично вот ездил одно время в Минске, был много раз, там, где-то в Восточной Европе, где они работают на аутсорсинге, у них клиенты Западная Европа и США. Вот. Ну, у них там близко часовые пояса рядом, много перекликающихся часовых поясов, что можно, например, в Германии там день, и в это время еще там в Польше тоже день, им удобно. Нам чуть сложнее. У нас вот таких аутсорсинговых историй международных почти нету. Есть вот соседние Бишкеки, есть в Кыргызстане, у них там есть компании 2-3, которые на штаты работают. В Казахстане почти нету, у нас вот все на внутреннем рынке. В Узбекистане вот с этим, наверное, более продвинуто, у вас как-то больше аутсорсинговых компаний, наверное. И интересно, вот ваш взгляд, вот действительно, на чем фокусироваться, вот какой-то сегмент, да, вот веб, мобильная разработка, очень большая конкуренция. Может, как-то специализироваться на чем-то. Вот. На ваш взгляд.
Да, хороший вопрос. Знаете, мы сами не сфокусируемся конкретно на одной платформе или на одной отрасли, ну, скажем, автоматизация бизнеса или, не знаю, работа, создание только соцсетей. Есть компании, которые занимаются только соцсетями, разные виды разрабатывают. Да? Некоторые занимаются чисто автоматизацией бизнеса, некоторые, не знаю, продают какие-то системы очередей и так далее, и так далее. Да? У нас как бы большой ассортимент. Здесь, понимаете, мы выбрали направление нестандартных программ. То есть есть готовые решения, можно их просто купить и внедрить. Да? Есть готовые платформы и так далее, и так далее. Мы ориентируемся на сложные и нестандартные приложения.
Это я потом скрою, потом, когда ответите, следующий. Потому что 4 вопроса налетело.
Хорошо, отлично, отлично. Мы вот, знаете, ко мне очень часто обращаются с просьбой сделать какой-то сайт, лендинг или корпоративные сайтики и так далее, и так далее. Я постоянно отказываюсь, потому что мы не ориентируемся на маленькие какие-то проектики, маленькие сайты, просвете. Наш вот самый маленький проект длится почти больше полгода, год, вот так, да, минимум. А некоторые проекты даже идут 1,5-2 года. Реально большие проекты. Мы в течение 2-3 месяцев делаем MVP, запускаем и дальше поддерживаем этот проект, улучшаем какие-то, добавляем новые функции и так далее, и так далее. Мы выбрали направление нестандартных приложений и сложных больших проектов. И плюс мы не делаем просто проекты клиенту один раз и дали ему этот код. У нас немножко другой модель, бизнес-модель. Мы продаем, то есть время наших сотрудников. То есть когда клиент подходит к нам, мы не говорим им, что вот ваш проект стоит вот столько-то сумм, потому что если разработать проект, как видит клиент, и дать клиенту, этот проект точно провальный. А провальный клиент – это негативно влияет на нашу репутацию, и плюс это, как сказать, не долгосрочная работа с клиентами. Да? Чем успешнее ваш клиент, чем лучше хорошие кейсы у вас есть, тем легче привлекать новых клиентов. Да? Именно поэтому мы оцениваем, исходя от количества разработчиков, которого хочет принять наш клиент, мы как сказать, вот таким вот образом мы формируем цену. Да? Это такой вопрос был там. Так вот, что я хотел сказать, мы, вот, например, ориентируемся на долгосрочные и сложные проекты. Но вот посмотрите, что у вас больше всего лучше получается. Если у вас хорошо получается лендинг-пейджи, у которых хорошая конверсия, красиво получается, ориентируйтесь на это. Если у вас сильные программисты и у вас сильный большой бэкграунд в сфере разработки сложных приложений, проектов, можете ориентироваться на это. Или вы, например, больше разбираетесь в бизнес-процессах, можете заниматься автоматизацией бизнес-процессов. Это очень большой рынок ERP, CRM и так далее, и так далее. Я бы порекомендовал ориентироваться на то, что у вас лучше получается. Какие еще вопросы были? Я, мне кажется, пустил.
Искали ли вы инвестиции для стартапов от Каличи? Вопрос Калича. И далее, если да, то на каких условиях и процентах договаривались? И как вообще договориться, чтобы не прогореть? Имеется в виду, скорее всего, договаривались с инвесторами, если были какие-то инвесторы.
Нет, я только один раз презентовал проект инвестору, но потерпел провал. Инвестор не стал инвестировать. Говорит, слишком высокая рентабельность, такого не может быть. Не поверил, короче. И в конечном итоге... То есть я никогда не привлекал инвесторов. Вот посмотрите, как я сказал, я вхожу в топ-3% программистов и являюсь высокооплачиваемым программистом, да, у нас по меркам Узбекистана. Поэтому все свои проекты инвестирую я сам. Помимо этого я еще занимаюсь инвестициями в недвижимость, в другие проекты и так далее, и так далее. То есть я сам являюсь инвестором, поэтому я как бы инвесторов не искал. Но на данный момент ищу инвестора для академии. Поэтому, не знаю, мне кажется, я не смогу на этот вопрос красиво ответить, так как у меня нет опыта в этой сфере.
Ну, это, мне кажется, от многих головных болей это спасает, то, что не надо внешние инвестиции привлекать отчасти.
Да,
ну,
согласен.
Конечно, если инвестор международный, там это другая история. Ну, тут у нас так, вопрос от пандемия сильно повлияла на многие бизнесы. Как вы планировали такие ситуации?
В смысле, то есть заранее запланировали?
Ну, видимо, как реагировали на пандемию, наверное, про это вопрос. Формулировка такая.
Вы знаете, пандемия сыграла нам на руку. Вот сначала мы проводили, например, курсы здесь, в Бухаре, офлайн, да? У нас были классы, мы потратили кучу денег, кучу вложений, чтобы сделать классы, там, проекторы и так далее, чтобы оформить офис-классы. И через несколько месяцев после того, как мы открыли академию нашу, началась пандемия, и нам пришлось закрыться. Но и где-то месяц-два мы работали в убыток, потому что как бы мы не можем уже привлекать новых клиентов, так как у нас офис закрыт. Да? И в этот момент мы решили немножко сменить формат нашей компании, вообще бизнес-модели, и полностью перешли в онлайн-режим. И на данный момент у нас клиенты со всего Узбекистана, и дай бог, может, даже начнем как бы рекламировать наши услуги и в Казахстан, Киргизстан, Таджикистан и так далее, то есть в другие страны. И именно в этом плане пандемия сыграла нам на руку, и из-за того, что все перешли на онлайн-обучение, даже школы, университеты, наш рынок онлайн-образования немножко, так сказать, созрел здесь, в Узбекистане. До этого мы пытались запустить онлайн-курсы, но мы раньше не смогли собрать нормально группы онлайн, потому что люди не верили, что вот онлайн можно нормально научиться чему-то, да. И вот благодаря пандемии люди уже привыкли как бы сидя дома учиться. В этом плане мы смогли пандемию под себя как бы адаптировать.
Ну, спрос у вас, вы говорили, что на весь Узбекистан теперь расширили обучение. Спрос большой. У вас курсы на каком языке? Просто интересно тоже. На двух, трех языках?
Узбекский, русский. Но в основном мы ориентируемся на узбекский язык, потому что в интернете очень много школ на русском языке, на английском тоже. Вот на узбекском языке контента почти нет. У нас здесь, в Узбекистане, многие знают только узбекский и все. Но они тоже хотят стать программистами. Мы как бы, наш контингент, наша аудитория – это люди, которые хотят стать молодые ребята, которые хотят стать программистами, и при этом не знают английский, русский. Ну,
а как вы материалы, вот вы каждый материал переводите?
Мы сами с нуля разработали. Ну как, мы за основу не брали ничего, то есть мы сами с нуля разработали наши материалы, исходя из своего опыта, как я научился программировать, какие проблемы были, какие эти были подводные камни были. Исходя из этого я сам сделал план первого курса, потом уже нанял других программистов, их подготовил. На данный момент я полностью вообще не участвую в развитии академии, и вот этот бизнес как бы сам развивается и растет. Я сейчас полностью ориентируюсь на аутсорсинговую компанию. То есть, да.
Супер. Следующий вопрос. С какими первыми проблемами вы столкнулись при выявлении проблем в ваших швейцарских часах компании? Как вы решали проблемы? Пример, пожалуйста. Для зрителей напомню, швейцарские часы – это отдел подразделения от IT в компании Саид Равшана, которая работает как часы. В отличие от там других отделов подразделений.
Да, было очень много боли. Сейчас попытаюсь коротко рассказать. Первая проблема – это проблема с кадрами. Первая, основная, первая и последняя, скажем так. Это проблема с кадрами. Очень трудно найти хороших специалистов. Даже в развитых странах по статистике уходит примерно 42-43 дня, чтобы нанять хорошего специалиста. А вот у нас в Узбекистане, тем более в провинции Бухара, почти невозможно. Это бесконечность, да? Не 42 дня, а бесконечность. И именно поэтому нам пришлось в первую очередь разработать процесс онбординга. То есть у нас свои критерии, по каким критериям мы отбираем. Мы точно знаем, по каким критериям мы отбираем стажеров, то есть какие знания должны иметь, какие навыки, то есть чтобы проверить потенциал этого человека. И мы берем этого человека и примерно в течение 4-5 месяцев подготавливаем. Они в течение, грубо говоря, полгода, зависит от уровня стажера, мы из них делаем джуниор-разработчиков, потом только их тоже в проекты добавляем, и они начинают работать над проектами, но при этом у нас там, чтобы сохранить качество, вот такой момент еще хотел сказать, чтобы сохранить качество кода и продукта, мы проводим код-ревью, и вот многие компании, к сожалению, не проводят код-ревью, а это как бы очень важный аспект технической части любого бизнеса. Почему? Потому что, посмотрите, если вы проверяете, разработчик написал какой-то код, да, отправляет на сервер, и перед тем, как его принять, нужно полностью проверить. Это дает две привилегии, то есть два плюса. Первое, это получается, ваш продукт будет работать намного лучше, код качественнее, меньше technical debt, то есть легко поддерживать, да, код-бейс. Так как мы ориентируемся на большие проекты, это очень важно для нас. Второе, это когда опытный программист говорит джуниору, что у тебя такие минусы, это ты неправильно сделал, нужно было так сделать. Это ускоряет процесс развития кадров. Ни для кого не секрет, развитие компании прям пропорционально к развитию сотрудников. Да? Чем быстрее развиваются кадры, сотрудники этой компании, тем быстрее развивается компания. Поэтому две вещи, основные аспекты. Первый – это налаживание процесса онбординга. Должна быть система, которая постоянно обеспечивает вашу компанию новыми кадрами, потому что постоянно везде есть утечка кадров, то есть вы подготавливаете кадров, и они поступают в другие страны, уезжают или просто переезжают куда-то, или какие-то другие компании headhuntят, да, сотрудников. Это нормально, поэтому нужно сначала наладить процесс онбординга, подготовка кадров. И второе – это система развития. Они должны постоянно развиваться. У нас мы проводим мастер-классы, мы покупаем разные курсы нашим сотрудникам, мы постоянно проводим код-ревью и постоянно говорим, какие минусы, какие плюсы у каждого, то есть у каждого разработчика, у каждого специалиста. Примерно так, надеюсь, смог ответить на вопросы.
Уточняющий еще вопрос. Вы сказали, за полгода вы готовите джуниора. На мой взгляд, это очень, не очень, это быстрый темп. Кто-то готовит за год. Если это нулевой человек, который 0 на входе. И в этом плане есть два подхода. Либо одни готовят фундаментальные, как эти Funk, эти крупные Facebook, Google и другие, то есть дают сперва какие-то абстрактные знания алгоритмов, алгоритмы thinking, потом какой-то низкоуровневый Linux, там, вплоть до вот эти посиксы, как эти процессы там происходят, база данных, потом, и говорят, любой язык, неважно, какой ты язык программирования учишь, потом уже главное, что у тебя база есть. Вот это. Второй подход – это более конкретные, сразу прикладные вещи. Там, вот веб, иди, вот веб прикладные вещи, там, JavaScript и так далее. И вот бэкэнд, сразу там другие ветви, дерево такое. Вот у вас какой подход, интересно, в этом плане, в подготовке?
Почему мы... Да, почему...
Excuse me, sorry, I have to interrupt because we have to finish. It's been 15 minutes over our time. So thank you for your presentation, Said. It was really useful. I'll just share the program for tomorrow, because most of our viewers will be coming back tomorrow to see and watch more about the DevFest Central Asia second day. So this is the second day program. So we will be starting at 11 GMT plus 5 time zone, and then we will be finishing. The first track will be finishing at 5, and the second track will be finishing at 6. So if you go to the playlist of the DevFest, you will see 2 different tracks. And these tracks will be in parallel. So it's not going to be one after the other. It's going to be at the same time. So you can pick and choose and attend which track you would like to attend and watch. Or you don't have to stick with one track. You can always switch in between and watch different tracks. But before I finish, I just want to say thank you for attending and watching the first day of DevFest Central Asia. We have 2 more days to go. So tomorrow is not the last day. Sunday there will be other sessions. But yeah, thanks again for your time. And thank you, Askar, for all your help. And we will see you tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you, Baris. Bye, everyone.